Broken Moon Clan, Central Division. Figure after figure started to appear on the field, and although today wasn't an inner disciple gathering, more people arrived. Above the Central Division was an azure palace floating in the sky amidst a sea of lightning, and it gave off an old, ancient aura. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan had both arrived as well. The eyes of the former was locked on the floating crest palace, and he found that the surrounding lightning was stronger than several months before. Today was the day to fight for the participation spots, known as the Floating Crest Tournament. The Floating Crest trial happened once every 5 years, and this was also an opportunity for the elders to find new disciples. Brother Zhao, Brother Lin, are you both here to sign up as well? Suren walked over, smiling. Ever since they had completed the mission, they had become friends. That's right. With Brother Zhao's strength, he's definitely able to participate. But for me, it's going to be hard. Lin Fan replied. Brother Zhao definitely will pass. Suren nodded his head. Because they had gone on the same mission together, Suren knew what Zhao Feng's strength was like, and the three would occasionally spar together. Of the three, Zhao Feng was the strongest, then Lin Fan, and then finally Suren. Suren usually didn't even have the chance to spar with Zhao Feng, but Lin Fan, who beat him easily, would be helpless when mentioning Zhao Feng. The words of the three went into the ears of Yun Mengxiang nearby. Floating Crest Competition? From Lin Fan and Su Ren's tone, Zhao Feng is able to get a spot. Yun Mengxiang's eyes twirled and landed on Zhao Feng. She realized that ever since the two of them became inner disciples, she paid less and less attention on Zhao Feng. As for the Scarlet Moon Demonic Cave event 1 month ago, she didn't attend and thought that Zhao Feng was just lucky. Yun Mengxiang was only at the first sky of the Ascended Realm, so she didn't sign up and just came here to watch. More and more people flooded onto the field, and the inner and core disciples appeared one by one. Half an hour later, all the inner disciples had arrived, and even some outer disciples had come to watch. For an event as big as this, the clan allowed the outer disciples to come in to watch. Go Brother Zhao! Yang Qingshan and Nan Gongfan cheered for Zhao Feng, and the latter nodded at them as a greeting. Brother Zhao, come here. A dominant, strong voice sounded from the side. Its core disciple, Yang Gan, ranked second of all the core disciples and one of the hottest picks for the head disciple. The crowd broke out into discussion. Yang Gan was dressed in pure white, and he was like a handsome carving. Being one of the most famous inner disciples, Yang Gan's every action was looked upon by others. The faces of some girl disciples would blush red as they looked at his handsome figure. Brother Yang. Zhao Feng went up and stood next to Yang Gan. They were the only two disciples of First Elder. Yang Gan was known for being righteous, and although he wasn't warm-hearted towards Zhao Feng, he didn't provide any trouble for him. Instead, he did his duty as the older disciple. Who's the guy walking with Yang Gan? Many were surprised, and some who knew the truth started to discuss. At one moment, Zhao Feng also caught the gaze of many. The latter walked confidently with Yang Gan side by side, and Yang Gan had the intention of taking Zhao Feng into the core disciples' circle. Of the core disciples, Zhao Feng was familiar with many of them, such as Sister Yuan Quanchun and Yuan Ji. This guy's a disciple of First Elder now. Sister Yuan looked unhappily at Zhao Feng. She was still with Ran Xiaoyuan, and the latter nodded her head as a greeting. Knowing that Zhao Feng was going to participate in the tournament as well, Sister Yuan laughed. Sister Ran, don't be respectful when you meant this brat. Teach him a lesson. We might not meet. Ran Xiaoyuan's face was slightly red as she sneakily glanced at Zhao Feng before she spoke in a low whisper. The Floating Crest competition used the 7 battles rule. The 7 battle rules meant that everyone fought 7 battles, and the winners would fight the winners, while the losers fought the losers. There was more than 30 people, and the chances of meeting a certain person wasn't high nor low. Apart from that, anyone who won 4 battles in a row would automatically progress to take a spot, because the more battles one won, the stronger the opponent would be, since everyone else was also winners. Anyone that won 4 battles in a row definitely had the ability to enter the top 10. Half an hour later, the high level of the clan appeared, and an array was set up in the middle of the field. The array was overlooked by Vice Head Zhang of the clan mission division. Cho, The sound of wind whistling appeared, and in the next instant, the aura of someone at the true spirit realm appeared. Greetings, elders. The first two who had arrived were Elder Shui and Hai Yun Master. After the two sat in their seats, another powerful appeared, which was much stronger than other two elders. First elder. Everyone bowed, and even the two other elders stood up. Next, the clan master and another elder arrived. Greetings, clan master and Granny Luiwe. The disciples as well as the deacons and vice heads bowed. The two who came were both women. One of them was a beautiful girl, who had a high and noble aura. She was the clan master of the Broken Moon clan. Although they were all at the true spirit realm, her aura was much stronger than Hai Yun Master's. Next to the clan master was a white-haired old woman, who had the scent of plants on her. The head of the grasswood division, Granny Luiwe. Zhao Feng knew a bit of information about this person. Granny Luiwe was the best pill master in the clan, and in both cultivation and pill refining, she surpassed Old Man Guan. The clan master, first elder and the other three elders sat in their places, and behind them stood their disciples. Behind the Broken Moon clan master was two female disciples, Sister Yuan and Ran Xiaoyuan. Ran Xiaoyuan's mentor is the clan master. Zhao Feng was surprised. No wonder she was already at the peak third sky of the ascended realm. Her main skill was probably the heavenly wind god technique as well. Behind Elder Shui were several disciples, and one of them was a baby-faced youth. It was Sun Yuanhao who had the changeable body. His cultivation was at the peak second sky, which meant that his talent was almost as good as Bei Mua's. Behind Hai Yun Master stood Bei Mua, Yuanji, and Quan Qin. As for Granny Luiwe, there was one familiar girl behind her. Luiwe. Zhao Feng was stunned. He didn't expect Luiwe to be a disciple of the head of Grasswood Division. Her cultivation had also reached the peak second sky, and having Granny Luiwe, the best pill maker in the clan, helping her, the advantage she had was huge. The latter was also surprised at Zhao Feng's figure behind First Elder. First Elder and the clan master held the highest authority in the clan. Why can't I ever get rid of this guy? Luiwe felt somewhat irritated. She and Zhao Feng both were disciples of Lord Xianxia and Lord Guanjuan respectively, and she thought that she would suppress Zhao Feng forever by becoming a disciple of Granny Luiwe. The thing that made her even more frustrated was that Zhao Feng only had a low-tier spiritual body. Interesting. So many familiar people. A smile appeared on Zhao Feng's face. His gaze scanned across familiar figures. Bei Mua, Ran Xiaoyuan, Luiwe, Sun Yuanhao, and Xiao Sun. All of these people were here to get a participation spot. Let the once every 5 years floating crest competition begin. The vice head of the Central Division, Vice Head Li, announced. The spectators became deadly silent. The rules of the competition was the same as usual. Every participant had their own number and their opponents would be drawn. Zhao Feng drew his number, then went back to stand behind First Elder. Brother Zhao, the strongest two in the participation group, is Bei Mua and Ran Xiaoyuan. As long as you don't meet those two, you should be able to win 4 in a row. Yang Gan analyzed. Bei Mua was the newest disciple, who had the best talent, comprehension, and cultivation. He had now reached the third sky of the ascended realm, and he had the potential to surpass Hai Yun Master. On the other side, Ran Xiaoyuan was a core disciple of the clan master, and her cultivation had reached the peak third sky. I know. Both of them. A weird smile appeared on Zhao Feng's face. The participation battles soon began. Wang. A transparent white seal appeared, showing 2 disciples that had already begun to fight. One of them was Xiao Sun, and he had used the rewards that he got to reach the second sky of the ascended realm. However, his opponent was an old disciple at the peak second sky, and after 20 or so moves, Xiao Sun lost. The winner would progress to the next round and battle other winners. The competition continued, and Bei Mua, Ran Xiaoyuan, and Sun Yuanhao all showed their skills. On the 8th battle, Bei Mua appeared. Northern Dark Heavenly Ice. A blue true force appeared from Bei Mua, which created a whirlpool and smashed forward. What's going on? His opponent couldn't breathe, and his face started to turn red. Wah! The disciple at the peak second sky of the ascended realm spat out a mouthful of blood, and the whirlpool was sucked back by Bei Mua with a schwa, or else. his opponent would have died. So strong. The spectators and contestants were all stunned, and the expressions of even core disciples changed. Not many people understood how Bei Moi won because it seemed like the latter didn't even hit his target. This Bei Moi isn't the one he was back at the Guanjuan Palace, to force the opponent to cough out blood from just the intent of his attack. Zhao Feng's expression was solemn. Bei Moi didn't just have high talent, he had high comprehension as well. He's cultivating the Northern Dark Heavenly Water technique. That skill was taken out of the Floating Crest Palace by Elder Shui, but not many were able to learn this high-class mortal skill. First Elder said slowly, Northern Dark Heavenly Water technique. Zhao Feng felt that this skill wasn't simple, just like his lightning wind palm. First Elder's words just then were warning Zhao Feng. Bei Moi's first battle stuck deeply in everyone's heart. It was just the intent of his attack, and he could force his opponent to spit out blood. It was hard to imagine what his true strength was like. Brother Bei is indeed great. It looks like there's no point anymore in this floating crest competition after he's learnt the Northern Dark Heavenly Water technique. Quan Chun sighed as envy, jealousy, and helplessness flashed in his eyes. Bei Moi might be weaker than him and Yuanji right now, but it was only a matter of time before they were surpassed. After Bei Moi went up, Ran Xiaoyuan, Sun Yuanhao, and Lu Yuer all showed off their strength. Ran Xiaoyuan beat her opponent, who was at the peak second sky of the Ascended Realm, in one move. Sun Yuanhao was slightly unluckier. His opponent was at the third sky, which required him 10 to 20 moves to win. Although only disciples of the third sky of the Ascended Realm have a chance, the disciples of elders can't be underestimated either. Zhao Feng thought. For example, Sun Yuanhao had great comprehension and talent, and he had trained one high-class mortal skill as well as two middle-class mortal skills, whereas other normal inner disciples would only have two middle-class mortal skills. Therefore, Zhao Feng's estimate of Sun Yuanhao's true strength was peak third sky. This meant that Sun Yuanhao could fight those one entire rank higher than himself. As for Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan, they were at least on par with those at the fourth sky of the Ascended Realm. The 12th battle, Zhao Feng versus Luo Haiqiang. Vice Head Li's voice rung out. Zhao Feng moved like a fish, and he landed on the stage in just a few breaths. His opponent was a disciple at the third sky, and of the more 40 disciples that signed up, 1/3 of them had reached the third sky of the Ascended Realm. So it was quite unlucky to meet a disciple of the third sky in the first round. Zhao Feng's azure hair blew in the wind, and a sharp glint appeared in his eye. It looks like you're the crazy person who trained the lightning wind palm. Luo Haiqiang licked his lips and tensed his body, not daring to be overconfident. The crazy person who trained the lightning wind palm? Zhao Feng's figure caught the attention of many people. Wind rising, lightning sounding. Zhao Feng expressionlessly thrust out his palm as his hair blew in the wind. Instantly, the sound of thunder appeared like there was a storm. Woo! Luo Haiqiang's body instantly froze as he was enveloped by a storm of chaotic wind and lightning. 7 deadly fingers. He condensed all his true force, and he sent out beams out purple light, which was strong enough to pierce through metal that was several layers thick. Shwa! The second the true force left his body, it was washed away in the storm. With a bang, Luo Haiqiang was sent flying. You're very strong. Luo Haiqiang surrendered, pale-faced. The spectators below were stunned, and many began to praise the power of lightning wind palm. To challenge those higher ranked than you and win in one move. Is this the power of lightning wind palm? Yang Gan's expression changed slightly. His control of lightning wind palm is ever better than Chenner's, and he has trained every move to a higher level. A light flashed in First Elder's eyes. He once had a disciple, but he had died due to the lightning wind palm. After Zhao Feng won, he retreated back behind First Elder to wait for the next battle. Soon, all the contestants finished their first round with Lin Fan easily beating a disciple at the peak second sky of the Ascended Realm. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan both easily passed the first round? Xiao Sun, who was watching below, was extremely disappointed and frustrated. He was relying on luck mostly, but unfortunately, his luck wasn't very good and he had lost in the first round. Every loss made the distance between him and a spot further away. After resting for half an hour, the second round began. The winners would fight with the winners, and those that could win 4 in a row passed directly. In reality, not many people won 4 times in a row, because the opponent would get more terrifying as each round progressed. None of the winners was simple. The second round, Xiao Sun lost again and he almost went crazy. Lin Fan's luck wasn't good either, and he met an opponent at the peak third sky. It looks like Lin Fan's going to lose, Xiao Sun thought, and Yun Mengxiang, who stood next to him, also smiled faintly. However, the result was unexpected. Lin Fan exchanged 50 or so moves with his opponent and he just about won. This guy has a high-class mortal skill and a low-grade mortal weapon. Xiao Sun looked like a pot of cold water had been thrown on him. They both went on the same mission, got the same rewards, but Lin Fan's growth far exceeded him. The greatest difference was Lin Fan had a high-class mortal skill. Lin Fan and Xiao Sun's contribution points shouldn't be enough for a high-class mortal skill and a low-grade mortal weapon. Lin Fan and Zhao Feng have been pretty close lately. A flash of regret appeared in Yun Mingxiang's eyes, and she could guess what had happened. Zhao Feng's reward was far greater than the others, and it wasn't hard for him to get a few mortal weapons. Lin Fan could only reach this far because of Zhao Feng. In the second round, Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan's position couldn't be wavered as they beat their opponents in one move. Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan are the strongest two in this competition. Even those at the peak third sky can't last more than 3 moves against them. Zhao Feng's strength isn't weak either. His lightning wind palm is extremely powerful. The crowd discussed. Zhao Feng, Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan had used dominating strength to crush their opponents. Amongst them, Bei Moi had shocked everyone as he beat a disciple at the peak third sky in one move. Even those at the fourth sky of the ascended realm might no be his match. A few inner disciples were wary and respectful towards Bei Moi, and none of the others wanted to meet Bei Moi. At this moment, there weren't even 10 people who had won 2 in a row. If one didn't have overwhelming strength, it was hard to win continuously. Soon, it was the third round, and those disciples who had won 2 battles in a row began to feel troubled. In the third round, Lin Fan met a strong opponent, Lu Yue. The latter had higher cultivation than him and better weapons as well as skills. But after 20 or so moves, Lin Fan had the upper hand. After all, her true battle power wasn't as powerful as Lin Fan's. At this time, she drew a jade saber, which suddenly increased her attack speed and power. In that instant, Lu Yue's offense had double in strength. Middle-grade mortal weapon, the spectators below exclaimed. I give up. Lin Fan gave up straight away so that he could preserve his strength for the battles coming later. Zhao Feng versus Sun Yuanhao. In the third round, Zhao Feng also met a troublesome opponent. Sun Yuanhao was the youth with the changeable body, and he was instantly taken in as a disciple by an elder. From their current achievements, Sun Yuanhao was placed right after Bei Moi. After all, the latter had entered the clan an entire month earlier than Sun Yuanhao, and therefore, he had a higher starting point. Many were expectant of this battle since both were disciples of elders. However, the exciting battle they were looking forward to didn't happen. Silver wall technique. Zhao Feng's blood boiled as a layer of silver radiated from him, which made his body look perfect. That guy's body strengthening has reached such a high level. The crowd below was stunned. Elder Shui's eyebrows twitched as he looked helplessly at First Elder and sighed. Lightning wind palm. With silver wall technique as the basis, Zhao Feng circulated his lightning wind palm and crushed towards Sun Yuanhao with lightning speed. Pa! 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 Zhao Feng suppressed Sun Yuanhao with lightning quick attacks. The first move, Sun Yuanhao was pushed back. The second move, his defensive barrier broke. The third move, he spat out blood. I've lost, but I didn't use my middle-grade spiritual weapon, Sun Yuanhao said depressed. Zhao Feng's attacks were too fierce and he didn't have the time to draw his middle-grade mortal weapon, or else the ending result might have not been the same. At least he wouldn't have lost that badly. The third round came to an end and only a few were able to keep their winning streaks. Zhao Feng looked around and only 4 people were able to win 3 battles in a row. They were Bei Moi, Ran Xiaoyuan, Zhao Feng and Lu Yue respectively. Those who had 2 wins and 1 loss, such as Lin Fan, were doing good, but most had 2 losses and 1 win, while some even had 3 straight losses like Xiao Sunday. It's going to be the 4th round. Zhao Feng was slightly expectant. There were only 4 people who had progressed to the 4th round, which meant that he had a 1 in 3 chance of meeting Bei Moi, Ran Xiaoyuan and Lu Yuer. If he met Lu Yuer, there wouldn't be any pressure. But it would be troublesome if he met Ran Xiaoyuan or Bei Moi. Those 2 could challenge those at the 4th sky. After resting for an hour, they drew their opponents. The 4th round had finally started. Although this round wasn't the last round, it was a very important round. Zhao Feng couldn't help but peek at the slip in his hand. He sighed and shook his head. It wasn't Lu Yuer. The 4th round was paid attention to by many. 2 people would get one of the 10 spots this round and have the qualifications to enter the Floating Crest trial. The 2 would be from Zhao Feng, Lu Yuer, Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan. These 4 all represented the high level of the clan as well. Bei Moi stood for Hai Yun Master, Ran Xiaoyuan stood for the Clan Master, Zhao Feng stood for the First Elder and Lu Yuer stood for Granny Lu Yue. Therefore, this wasn't just a battle, it also represented the clash between the high level of the clan. Brother Zhao, you must win face for Master this time. If the opponent is Lu Yuer, you have a higher chance of winning. Yang Gan smiled and patted Zhao Feng's shoulder. Lu Yuer? Zhao Feng thought and sighed. It wasn't. Zhao Feng didn't pay any attention to the opponents he faced in the first 3 rounds, and he knew all 3 in the 4th round. Both Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan were troublesome enemies, and if Zhao Feng didn't use his left eye, he didn't have any confidence to win. He might be able to beat those higher than him in cultivation, but his opponents could too, and they already had a higher cultivation to begin with. Sister Ran, who's your opponent? There shouldn't be any problems as long as you don't meet Bei Moi. Sister Yuan glanced curiously at Ran Xiaoyuan. She didn't pay any attention to the previous opponents, but the people in the 4th round were all strong. It's him, Ran Xiaoyuan said in a low tone. Who? Him? Sister Yuan followed Ran Xiaoyuan's gaze and saw the one-eyed youth. Isn't this great? Sister Ran, you've got to help me teach that shameless brat a lesson. Sister Yuan laughed in joy. She wanted Ran Xiaoyuan to meet Zhao Feng, so the former could teach the latter a lesson for her. But Ran Xiaoyunan's eyes fluttered slightly as she clenched her fists tightly. Right at this moment, Zhao Feng's gaze moved in her direction, which made her face slightly red. Sister Ran, you've got to gather your courage and not be scared by his appearance. You can beat him with your strength. Sister Yuan encouraged. Oh? Xiaoyuan's opponent is the disciple who trained the lightning wind palm. A clear, crisp voice sounded full of warmth. The speaker was the Broken Moon clan master who had a high and noble aura. Yes, master, it's that brat, Sister Yuan said respectfully. Hearing this, the eyebrows of the clan master twitched slightly. Maybe it's even worse for Ran Xiaoyuan to meet him instead of Bei Moi. How is this possible? Sister Yuan was shocked as her heart beat 120 times in disbelief. This is just my instinct. Maybe this is because he trained the lightning wind palm. The clan master smiled and regained her composure. The 4th round had already begun and Lin Fan, as well as Sun Yunhao, had both successfully passed while Xiao Sun was defeated 4 times in a row and left straight away, giving up the other battles in despair. The crowd finally reached a climax. The 2 that were fighting this time were Bei Moi and Lu Yuer. The latter slightly clenched her teeth, and she immediately took her middle-grade mortal weapon out the second the battle started. Solitude Moon Saber Manual. Her jade saber turned into cold flashes as she waved her saber. Line after line of light shaped similar to curved moons appeared. At the same time, a weird crystal on the sword lit up, which increased the power of the sword. With her middle-grade spiritual weapon, Lu Yuer's offense could threaten those at the peak 3rd sky, but her opponent wasn't a normal cultivator at the 3rd sky. Northern Dark Heavenly Water Screening Water Sword. Bei Moi's face was expressionless as usual as his hands became unusually agile, and a layer of dark blue true force condensed into a 1-yard-long transparent sword. Pew! 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 The sword clashed heavily together with Lu Yuer's attack, and under the exchange, Lu Yuer was pushed back as her breathing became ragged, whereas Bei Moi stood on the same spot. This was the first time that Bei Moi didn't win in one move. After all, Lu Yuer had used the power of her weapon and her Solitude Moon Saber manual, which allowed her attacks to almost reach the 4th sky level. Nothing showed on Bei Moi's face as he thrust his 2 hands forward, sending wave after wave of attacks. Boom! Boom! Huang! Water and light flashed everywhere as the two battled. 10 moves later, Lu Yuer was already puffing. Your attacks can almost threaten those at the 4th sky of the Ascended Realm, but your cultivation isn't high and you can't sustain using your middle-grade mortal weapon. Bei Moi said straight to the point. Lu Yuer's face was pale white, and facing Bei Moi, who had great talent, comprehension, and strength, she couldn't do anything. I give up. Lu Yuer bit her teeth and put the saber back into its sheath. Bei Moi. Bei Moi. After winning 4 battles in a row, Bei Moi's fame reached its peak, and the higher-level people of the clan nodded their heads like they could already see a new star. Unfortunately, I didn't meet a true opponent this time, Bei Moi said as he walked off the stage and glanced towards a certain direction full of battle intent. The crowd all followed his gaze, and they saw the youth standing behind First Elder. It was an azure-haired, one-eyed youth who gave everyone a weird feeling. It's that guy again. Even Bei Moi wants to fight him. Brother Zhao has learnt the lighting wind palm, and he is probably able to fight against Bei Moi. The spectators discussed. It could already be imagined that the two would meet when they fought for the position of core disciple later on. Zhao Feng expressionlessly stood still, and he remembered what Bei Moi had said before. We'll settle it out in the clan. Settle it out. The deal between Zhao Feng and Bei Moi was slowly approaching. The 4th round still continued. Zhao Feng versus Ran Xiaoyuan. The second this was announced, the crowd once again broke into chaos. Another battle deciding who would win 4 in a row. Zhao Feng and Ran Xiaoyuan had both won 3 fights in a row, and this victory would decide who progressed into the trial. Sister Ran, the battle will start soon. Zhao Feng smiled faintly, while Sister Yuan clenched her teeth and exclaimed, Sister Ran, don't go easy on him. I won't. Ran Xiaoyuan condensed her heavenly wind true force as she looked at Zhao Feng with a red face. But she didn't have any intention of backing down. The girl was still shy, but she purposely pretended to be confident and strong. Zhao Feng wanted to laugh because he already felt Ran Xiaoyuan's heart jumping up and down. Heavenly wind shadow. Ran Xiaoyuan's small figure suddenly flashed and disappeared as she had turned into the wind. Heavenly wind shadow. Zhao Feng's figure also flashed, and like Ran Xiaoyuan, he disappeared. What's going on? The spectators exclaimed. Zhao Feng and Ran Xiaoyuan's movements were almost the exact same. Slicing wind stance. Slicing wind stance. The two thrust out their palms at the same time, and instantly, a flash of light shot out from each side. This? Ran Xiaoyuan's eyes twinkled as she looked weirdly at Zhao Feng. Rotating wind stance. Zhao Feng's figure suddenly leapt into the air as his azure hair blew in the wind, and an azure ball of wind appeared from his palm, which shot at Ran Xiaoyuan. This rotating wind stance was the mysterious wind palm that he had learnt that day back at the canyon and in the heavenly wind god technique. This move was the rotating wind palm. Rotating wind palm. Ran Xiaoyuan exclaimed as her beautiful figure also leapt into the air and clashed together with Zhao Feng, using the same move. Facing the familiar figure and actions which had been watched 1,000 times by Zhao Feng, it caused Zhao Feng to be slightly dazed. Boom! The powerful wind ball exploded, and it sent Zhao Feng flying. The two had reached the same level in the heavenly wind god technique, but Ran Xiaoyuan's cultivation was higher than Zhao Feng's, and the latter had been dazed for a second just then. This guy's skill is the same as Sister Ran's. What does he have in mind? Peh. This brat's even staring at Sister Ran with his disgusting eye during the middle of the battle. Sister Yuan stomped on the ground due to anger, while the Broken Moon clan master seemed to go into deep thought. First Elder, on the other hand, had a weird expression on his face. I give up. Zhao Feng suddenly laughed and jumped off the stage. Ah! This scene made the jaws of the spectators drop. From the beginning till now, Zhao Feng gave them the impression of a strong, cold, emotionless, insane person. No one thought that he would surrender. You haven't lost yet. Ran Xiaoyuan finally reacted and said, red-faced, A highly expectant battle was finished just like this. Brother Zhao, how can you play around like this? This win contributes to Master's face. Yang Gan said, slightly unsatisfied. Although he knew Ran Xiaoyuan would win, he still thought that Zhao Feng could put up a good fight. It doesn't matter if I win or not, as long I get to participate in the Floating Crest trial. It's the latter that matters. Zhao Feng said casually. The reason he gave up was because of 3 points. Ran Xiaoyuan was strong, and without him using his bloodline power or he didn't have absolute confidence. His strength would be seen as anyone, and there was no reward. Of course, the most important point was that he had a unique feeling for Ran Xiaoyuan. It was like he felt that he owed the latter a favor. Why? Why did he suddenly give up? Ran Xiaoyuan was extremely puzzled. This Zhao Feng is extremely cunning, and he didn't fight head-on against Sister Ran. And there's another possibility, and that's he likes junior sister, or else why would he give up? Sister Yuan murmured to herself, which made Ran Xiaoyuan's face flush red, and she then glanced sneakily at the calm azure-haired youth with the corner of her eyes. The expressions of the two didn't escape the Broken Moon clan master's eyes, but instead, her eyebrows scrunched up. After Zhao Feng lost, his 3-win streak stopped, and although many were disappointed at the outcome, none of them could do anything since Zhao Feng himself had surrendered. The Floating Crest competition was coming to an end after the 4th round, and Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan, who had both won 4 rounds, got to instantly take one of the spots to enter. The remaining disciples would take the other spots available by their ranks, and the 3 core disciples who were attending this time all had 1 spot guaranteed. Apart from them, Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan also took 2 spots, meaning that there were only 5 places left. Brother Zhao, you've lost a chance just then by not using your full strength. If you keep on continuing like this, maybe you really won't be able to participate. Yang Gan warned. Brother Yang, relax. Zhao Feng nodded his head. He needed to win all 3 remaining fights to definitely get a spot, and everything was in control. Apart from Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan, no one was able to stop him. The 5th round, Zhao Feng won in 1 move, crushing his opponent at the peak 3rd sky. At this moment, his strength made others wary. The 6th round, Zhao Feng's opponent was Lin Fan. I give up. Lin Fan didn't want to spend too much energy against Zhao Feng, and he immediately gave up. The 7th battle. His opponent was Lu Yuer, the only threat under Bei Moi and Ran Xiaoyuan. Everyone thought that this would be an exciting battle, but Zhao Feng used lightning quick attacks and beat Lu Yuer in several moves. Casually, Zhao Feng had won 6 battles and became top of the remaining contestants. Sister Yuan's eyes twinkled as she locked on to Ran Xiaoyuan. I don't know. Ran Xiaoyuan's face was apple red as she shook her head, and mist appeared in her eyes like she had been blamed for something she didn't do. This doesn't have anything to do with Xiaoyuan. Zhao Feng surrendering means that she didn't have to participate in a fierce fight. The Broken Moon clan master's voice sounded, and at this time, the competition had come to an end. The 7 disciples were Bei Moi, Ran Xiaoyuan, Zhao Feng, Lu Yuer, Sun Yuan Hao, Lin Fan, and Chen Yu. Apart from the last disciple Chen Yu, who was at the peak 3rd sky, Zhao Feng was familiar with the others. The 3 core disciples and the 7 inner disciples would participate in the Floating Crest trial 10 days later. Yang Gan, Quan Chen, Lu Hu, Bei Moi, Ran Xiaoyuan, Zhao Feng. The 10 of you have gained the qualifications to participate in the once every 5 years Floating Crest trials. A deep, strong voice echoed across the field, announcing the end of the Floating Crest competition. The competition was only for gaining the entry to the Floating Crest Palace. The 10 of you shall meet here in 10 days. The clan master's soft, clear voice sounded, and as soon as she finished speaking, 5 auras of the true spirit realm left. The crowd started to dissipate, and those who had failed had dim eyes. I can't believe that I'll also be able to participate in the Floating Crest trial. Lin Fan felt like he was in a dream. Although he was once the top outer disciple, he hadn't become an inner disciple for long, and he didn't have any hope at all of entering. But the youth next to him had changed his destiny. Lin Fan had used the rewards from the mission as a stepping stone to push himself up to the 2nd sky of the Ascended Realm. Straight after that, Zhao Feng had given him a high-class mortal skill, closing the gap between him and the disciples of elders. Adding to the fact that Lin Fan was willing to work hard, the latter grasped this chance. Lin Fan took a deep breath and he didn't say any words of gratitude, but he silently remembered this. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan returned together, and not far away from them was Xiao Sun and Princess Yun Mengxiang. Xiao Sun's eyes were full of unwillingness, and he felt extremely irritated. He had forgotten that he hadn't even placed any hope at all to enter. But seeing Lin Fan and Zhao Feng both gain the right, his heart couldn't calm down. Yun Mengxiang sighed, and she was extremely regretful. But she knew that the time had gone. If she was able to keep the relationship she had with Zhao Feng before, maybe she would be the Lin Fan next to him. After returning to their courtyards, Zhao Feng and Lin Fan parted ways, and they began to fully prepare for the Floating Crest trial. On the 5th day, First Elder called Yang Gan and Zhao Feng over, and the latter understood that the reason they were called was because of the Floating Crest trial. This event was once every 5 years, and not only had Hai Yun Master participated once, even First Elder had. First Elder was 100 to 200 years old, and he definitely knew a lot about the Floating Crest trial. The specific contents of the Floating Crest trial is different every time, but only one thing doesn't change. The longer one stays in the trial, the higher chance of being recognized by the Floating Crest Palace. At the same time, those who live longer in the trial will have a higher chance of getting better rewards. One St. Elder simply said what it was about, and Zhao Feng immediately had some questions. Can we understand it as survival time? The longer one stays, the higher the score. That's right. It's about who survives to the end. First Elder had a look of praise on his face. Of course, there will be baits in the trial. These baits will also have danger accompanying them, and the slightest mistake could mean failure. It depends on how confident you are. First Elder added. He didn't say too much about the Floating Crest trial because everything relied on strength and comprehension. After leaving First Elder, Zhao Feng returned to where he lived and told Lin Fan everything. As for the last 5 days, Zhao Feng focused on solely cultivation, and because he had reached the 11th level of the Silver Wall technique, his cultivation progressed greatly and he reached the peak of the second sky. In the blink of an eye, the last 5 days had passed, and before the sky had lit up, the 10 disciples had already gathered at the Central Hall Division. These 10 were all the elites who had obtained the qualifications to enter the Floating Crest trial, and the 3 core disciples were the leaders. The 3 core disciples, Yang Gan, Quan Chan, and Lu Hu. Yang Gan ranked second of the 10 core disciples and at the 5th sky of the Ascended Realm. One of the hot picks for the new head disciple. Lu Hu ranked 7th of the 10 core disciples and at the 4th sky of the Ascended Realm. Forte body strengthening. Quan Chen ranked 10th of the 10 core disciples and the newest core disciple. Amongst them, Yang Gan was the strongest, and many people, including First Elder, had high hopes for him. Some even predicted that Yang Gan's score could surpass Hai Yun Master's, who had the top score in tens of years. Apart from him, many also had high hopes for Bei Moi. Standing in the group, Lin Fan was slightly nervous since all these opponents were stronger than him. Brother Zhao, will Brother Yang help you? Lin Fan asked. Nope. Zhao Feng decisively shook his head. The Floating Crest trial was a place where their destinies could be changed, and everyone who entered would try their best. Once they entered the trial, Yang Gan would try his best and try to obtain the best score he could, which meant he wouldn't have time to help Zhao Feng. According to what First Elder said, rewards were accompanied with luck, and the slightest mistake would be failure, even if one was at the 7th sky of the Ascended Realm. You're not worried at all? Lin Fan glanced at Zhao Feng's confident figure, and he couldn't help but admire him. Zhao Feng smiled faintly and he didn't reply. After realizing the truth of this trial, he didn't worry at all. With his mysterious left eye, he had great battle power and survival rate. Comparing survival times? Zhao Feng laughed coldly in his heart as his left eye started to thump. So several auras at the True Spirit Realm appeared and landed on the Central Hall Division. The youths realized that the clan master, First Elder, and 3 other elders had flown near the Floating Crest Palace. Wang, the azure lightning around the Floating Crest Palace gave everyone a mysterious feeling like they were in a fairy tale. Zhao Feng sharply felt that the lighting around had reached its peak power, like it was full, open, First Elder exclaimed as a wave of true force appeared from his palm and went into the floating crest palace. At the same instant, the clan master and the other 3 elders also put their energy into the palace. As the 5 at the true spirit realm put their power into the floating crest palace, the palace started to rumble and the lightning became even brighter. At last, all of the lightning condensed into one point, and under the guidance of the 5, it merged into the Azure Palace. Huang! Everyone felt the air tremble, and Zhao Feng used the power of his left eye to catch a wisp of a transparent ripple appear with the floating crest palace as its center. Although his left eye could see through the eye patch, its vision would decrease. But even then, Zhao Feng could see the 5 using an ancient array on the floating crest palace itself to open it, or else the lightning surrounding it could have killed them. After sustaining it for a while, the gate of the floating crest trial opened with a bang, and the lighting inside was so bright that even Zhao Feng couldn't see through it with his left eye. The floating crest palace has finally opened. Everyone was excited, and a staircase appeared at the entrance of the palace. The 5 at the true spirit realm stepped onto the staircase, and they signaled for the 10 below to come up. So. The 10 elite disciples at the ascended realm all circulated their true force to help themselves fly and land on the staircase. Standing on the stairs, Zhao Feng could feel a very ancient, old aura from the shining, white palace. The 10 elite disciples stood in a straight line on the stairs, and the clan master and the 4 elders had weaker auras. After recovering for a bit, their gazes landed on the 10 disciples, who were full of excitement and expectation. The Broken Moon clan master smiled and nodded her head at Ran Xiaoyuan as encouragement. First Elder was calm as he looked at Yang Gan and Zhao Feng, full of expectation. Elder Shui, Hai Yun Master, and Granny Luyue had their own disciples participating, and Zhao Feng felt like the floating crest trial was actually a battle between the elders of the clan. In the group, Quan Chen's eyes flashed coldly as he glanced at Zhao Feng. Ever since Zhao Feng had become a disciple of First Elder, Quan Chen had suppressed his anger, and he waited for this chance. The floating crest trial. This trial was full of danger and rewards, and there were cases of people dying. The most important thing was that the cultivators at the true spirit realm couldn't even see what happened inside. Wang, the entrance of the floating crest palace trembled slightly, and a green door appeared from the bright white light. After a few breaths, the green door stabilized. The entrance has stabilized, and it will automatically close when 10 people have entered. First Elder warned. Shua! Shua! All 10 used their speed skills and turned into blurs as they sped past the green door. Shua! The second Zhao Feng passed through the door. He felt a numb feeling wash over him. The next instant, everyone landed on a black golden road that was 10 yards wide. In this dim place, the sights of everyone was restricted, even though they had all reached the ascended realm. But there was one exception, and that was Zhao Feng. The dim light didn't affect him much. Why can't we move? The 10 elite disciples felt their body become numb or hard, and they couldn't control their bodies. Cho! Cho Cho! In the dim light, a few bright lights appeared, which turned into 10 transparent tokens and merged into their bodies with a shua. At the same time, a voice sounded in their heads. The floating crest trial has begun, and the floating crest token, which has just merged into your bodies, will be used to record your score. The group had been told this before they had entered the palace, so they weren't surprised. The longer one stays, the better the result. The number of trials passed as well as your performance in the trials will also affect your final score, and the final score will decide the reward. The mechanical voice sounded once again like it was just announcing the rules. At this time, Zhao Feng felt the numbness disappear, which allowed him to move again. The first trial. Abyss of Death, 3 days' time. The robotic voice said this, then it vanished. Everyone stood on the black and gold road, and they didn't know what to do. The road was made of a hard material, which gave a cold feeling. With the group's strength, they couldn't even damage it. On both sides of the path was a deep abyss, and the howling winds could change at any time. Zhao Feng calculated that apart from the 3 core disciples who could block the wind for some time, everyone else would instantly be ripped to shreds. The only safe place was the black and golden path. Zhao Feng's back suddenly went cold as he felt danger appear behind him. Dang! 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 From the pitch-black path behind them, a soul-shaking sound appeared. At the same time, a terrifying aura also spread out. What is it? Everyone, including the three core disciples, turned around but could only see a blurry figure. Oh my God! Zhao Feng turned around and he was instantly shocked by what he saw. Run! Zhao Feng immediately told Lin Fan before speeding off, and the latter followed Zhao Feng without any hesitation. Quan Chan and the others were all puzzled, but the metallic footsteps behind them became closer and closer. The aura from it also pressured them, causing their blood to solidify. Of the 10, there were a few who instinctively followed Zhao Feng and ran forward. Dang! Dang! In the darkness, a black metal monster 3 yards tall appeared, and a pair of green eyes had opened. There was also a pair of dark green wings on the black metal monster's back which had a 10-yard span. What is that thing? The hearts of everyone trembled. Everyone run! That monster's aura is at the true spirit realm. Yangon exclaimed. Even someone as strong as him, who had reached the 5th sky of the ascended realm, was helpless against someone of the true spirit realm. The result of anyone facing the black metal monster would be instant kill. No one could deny this, and Zhao Feng's eyesight was the best. After he saw the black metal monster, he instantly ran without hesitation. Run forward. There was no other path. Behind them was a black metal monster, and on both sides was the abyss. So, the 3 core disciples had the fastest speed, and in the blink of an eye, they had surpassed Zhao Feng. Lin Fan's expression changed, but there was nothing he could do. Of the 10 participating, the 3 core disciples were the strongest. Dang! 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 The black metal monster's footsteps sounded slow, but its speed wasn't. It would surpass 10 meters with every step. The deep footstep sound and aura of the true spirit realm made the hearts of everyone jump and fill them with fear. We'll all be instantly killed when we get caught by this black metal monster, Quan Chen thought in fear. In this desperate situation, how could he bother about Zhao Feng? Despair. Death. Everyone started to sprint at their max speed. Brother Zhao, why don't you run faster? Lin Fan ran alongside Zhao Feng, but he found that the latter's speed was constant. Zhao Feng's sharp eyes glanced backwards and he said in a low tone, "Didn't you hear that the first round would be 3 days long?" Lin Fan first paused. Then his expression changed dramatically as he took in a cold breath. "Can you maintain max speed for 3 days?" Zhao Feng asked calmly. "Impossible. I can only stay at my max speed for 2 hours." Lin Fan shook his head. If he accelerated to his max speed, he was even faster than horses. But he would spend too much energy, and the first trial was 3 days long. The trial won't send a complete monster at the true spirit realm to kill us, or else. Do you think we would have any chance of survival? Zhao Feng continued asking. No way, Lin Fan said without hesitation. Facing someone at the true spirit realm, they wouldn't be able to resist at all. Even if the 10 grouped together, they would still be killed in one hit. The speed of the black metal monster behind us is only at the 2nd sky of the ascended realm. All we need to do is maintain this speed and not be caught in 3 days. Then we will successfully pass the first trial. Zhao Feng gave his answer. His eyesight was the best, and he knew the speed of the black metal monster. Everything about it had reached the true spirit realm apart from its speed, and its speed was lower than anyone here. That's how it is. Lin Fan immediately controlled his speed to save his energy. At the same time, he couldn't help but admire the youth in front of him more. Zhao Feng's calmness and control had reached an unbelievable level. Dang! 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 The metallic footsteps sound slowly became smaller. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan maintained their speed, and because they were just a bit faster than the black metal monster, the distance between them would increase over time. A few hours later. Who? Lu Yuer and Sun Yuanhao in front were resting on the ground, recovering their energy. At the speed they were running, the energy they had expended was a lot. You two weren't caught by the black metal monster even though you guys ran that slowly? Lu Yuer's eyebrows scrunched up as she said, surprised. Haha, our speed is just a tiny little bit faster than the black metal monster. Just a bit longer and the blockhead will catch up. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. After the slight pause, he and Lin Fan then slowly kept on running, like they had just stopped to look at the view. That is possible? Lu Yuer and Sun Yuanhao looked at each other with disbelief, but the sound of metal footsteps instantly appeared. Run! The two saw the huge black shadow behind them that released the terrifying aura, which almost froze their blood. The first trial, Abyss of Death Time. 3 days. Half a day had passed and the disciples in front didn't run for long before their energy had expended. Although they had pills which could recover their energy, it wasn't good for the body if they were continuously used. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan were the first to find how the black metal monster worked, and they used the smallest amount of energy for the biggest gain. The other disciples sprinted for a while, then they would sit down and recover. But when they had just fully recovered, the black metal monster had caught up again. Of course, not everyone was a retard, and soon, everyone found the best possible way to deal with the monster. The second day. A few of the disciples started to feel tired, but the black metal monster behind them wasn't, since it was a mechanical machine and not made out of blood and bones. At this time, the scenery to the two sides on the road started to change. At first, Zhao Feng didn't understand what was happening until he found a skeleton lying in a broken room. The skeleton looked like it had been in the room for a very long time, but the bones still glowed faintly. Next to it were a few items. A pile of primal crystal stones, a broken bamboo sword, a jade ornament, and a few ancient books. The 3 core disciples were all here and looking at it. Zhao Feng found that the wooden room was about 100 yards from where he was, and in between was the abyss. Under normal circumstances, those at the 3rd sky of the ascended realm couldn't fly. They can float in the air for 100 yards, but the wind on top of the abyss was so strong that even cultivators at the 3rd sky would be ripped to shreds in a few breaths. At this moment, the 3 core disciples all stood on the edge of the black and golden road, but they didn't make any moves. The pupil of Zhao Feng's left eye slightly contracted as he inspected the skeleton and the items close up. The skeleton has been here for a long time, but the bones are still faintly glowing, meaning that this person's cultivation was at the true spirit realm or higher when they lived. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. It wasn't just him who saw this. The 3 core disciples also saw this. The items had been left behind for a very long time, but they hadn't rusted or broken, which meant that they were not simple. Broken bamboo sword, jade ornament, ancient books. The materials of these items were all unique, and like the bones, they weren't worn. If I could get the items next to the corpse, it wouldn't matter even if I failed this trial. The items left behind by a cultivator at the true spirit realm may be spiritual class skills or spiritual weapons. Quan Chun was extremely excited and he couldn't contain his greed. Everyone looked expectantly at the items next to the skeleton, and Zhao Feng soon came to a conclusion. The broken bamboo sword should be a spiritual weapon, and even if it had no spirit inside, it was still on par with an elite-class mortal weapon at least. The material of the jade ornament was extremely unique, and it seemed to have a power flowing around it. The price of it might not be as much as a spiritual weapon, but it shouldn't be much off. As for the 2 old books, no one knew precisely what the class was, but with the skeleton's cultivation before they died, it should be a peak-class mortal skill at the minimum. These items might even surpass the rewards from the first place of the trial. Even Zhao Feng had the urge to grab them, but his eyes twinkled and sighed, "Go!" Lin Fan didn't hesitate at all, and he followed Zhao Feng. Indeed, even those at the 4th sky of the ascended realm didn't have full confidence to reach the wooden room and return unharmed. Lin Fan thought. Those at the 4th sky of the ascended realm only had a 20% chance at success, and Yanggan, who had the highest cultivation, might have 30 to 40% depending on how strong the wind was. My goal is first place and beat Hai Yun Master's score. Yanggan's eyes became sharp as he left as well. Next, Quan Chun and Lu Hu both sighed, and they started running again. Most of the disciples would hesitate in front of these items, but they would leave after a while. They were all elite disciples and they could control their greed. Furthermore, the chances of success were far too low, and those under the 4th sky of the ascended realm almost had no chance. After that, massive stones began to appear on the 2 sides on the road with rewards written on them. At a certain point, a forest with dense energy appeared in the abyss, and one could see the treasures in it with their eyes. Spiritual tasty fruit can help those under the seventh sky of the ascended realm. One fruit can help the cultivator jump one sky straight away. Lu Yuer exclaimed as she recognized the fruit. Moondragon root, the rumored treasure which increases the body's attributes, and even has a chance of giving an ancient special talent. Zhao Feng stared at the forest in front and he took in a deep breath. The bait was just too strong. There were too many treasures here that could change one life and destiny. Just like Zhao Feng's left eye. Zhao Feng even found some heaven-defying materials, which could be used to increase one's talent. The treasures of this forest surpassed everything else they saw so far. If one of them could enter the forest and change their destiny, the true spirit realm wouldn't be hard to reach. Spiritual tasty fruit. Scarlet dragon fruit. The eyes of a disciple at the peak third sky shone with greed. This person was Chun Yu, the only person that Zhao Feng wasn't familiar with. Tang! Chun Yu exclaimed as he circulated his true force to form a scarlet-red wave, which propelled him towards the abyss. The wind above the abyss started to move, which made Chun Yu's face go red. He used everything he had and ran about 10 to 20 yards before the layer of true force around him crumbled. Ah! Chun Yu screamed before falling into the abyss and disappearing from view. This scene stunned all the other disciples. With Chun Yu's peak third sky cultivation, he could only run about 10-20 yards in the air, not even 1/5 of the total distance. Zhao Feng's expression was extremely solemn. His cultivation was lower than Chun Yu's, meaning that the quantity of true force he had was lower than the latter's. But it was better in terms of pureness. Let's go. Lu Hu, a core disciple, shook his head and left. At first, he wanted to try because he was at the fourth sky and his forte was body strengthening. But after seeing what had happened to Chen Yu, Lu Hu knew that he could only travel 40 to 50 yards at best before falling into the abyss. Let's continue running. Everyone sighed and suppressed the greed in their hearts as they started to run again. Jiang! 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 The black metal monster behind them didn't know tiredness or food and it kept on chasing. Even though the speed of the disciples was fast, they still needed time to rest and recover, meaning that they wouldn't be able to fully throw the monster off. 30% chance. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled as he stared at the forest, but he gave up in the end. The road of the Floating Crest trial was long and there would definitely be more rewards later on. This was just the first trial and it was the road of temptation, not just the road of death. The entrance of the Floating Crest Palace. Wang! A weird green light shined from the door. This fast. The four elders and the clan master were all surprised. The circle faded and a figure appeared. It was Chun Yu. What made you come out so quickly? Elder Shui asked deeply. Chun Yu's expression was gray as he told the elders and clan master what had happened. You're an inner disciple and you can't even resist this temptation? Granny Luyue said disdainfully. It's not all his fault. This trial seems to be harder than the previous ones. They were chased by a monster at the true spirit realm and the rewards on the path was great. The Broken Moon clan master's soft and charming voice sounded. The harder it is, the greater the final reward. Unfortunately, this youngster didn't even pass the first trial, meaning that he won't get any rewards. Luckily, this is just a ground of trial for those of the righteous. Can you imagine him coming back alive if he went to a demonic trial? First elder faintly smiled. The elders weren't very surprised at Chun Yu's failure since their own disciples were still participating. In the blink of an eye, 2 more days had passed in the trial. Jiang! Jiang! The black metal monster chased effortlessly, although its speed wasn't very fast. Most of the disciples had to rely on their willpower and pills to continue. Of them all, Yanggan was the most relaxed. His cultivation was the highest and his speed was several tiers higher than the black metal monsters. Even Quan Chen started to feel tired. The disciples under the fourth sky of the ascended realm had to push on bit by bit, step by step to avoid being killed by the monster behind them. Everyone had finally understood that the first trial abyss of death meant that they would be chased for 3 days and 3 nights straight, while temptation would be on the path as well, trying to distract them. There's only half a day left. Everyone, keep it up. Yanggan cheered on from the front, but this was all he could do. Even he would be instantly slaughtered by the monster. Yang Gan's gaze landed on the only other disciple of First Elder, Zhao Feng. The latter's breathing rate was even and he had a calm expression unlike many others. It was Lin Fan beside him who had sweat pouring down his face, but he continued with his strong willpower. The thing that surprised Yang Gan most was that Zhao Feng and Lin Fan both had the lowest cultivation in the group, but they could continue up to here. Especially Zhao Feng, he seemed much more relaxed than most others. At this time, the temptations on the two sides of the path became closer and closer. These temptations were 100 yards away, but now some were at 70 to 80 yards with the lower range even being at 50 to 60 yards away. But through 2 days of continuous running, the energy that the people had dropped. Furthermore, the value of the items dropped compared to before. The greater the reward, the bigger the risk. While the difficulty drops, it also means that the rewards drop in value as well. Zhao Feng nodded his head silently. As they ran, his left eye kept on scanning the rewards that popped up and he analyzed the success chance. However, the success rate of most rewards were lower than 50% and the items weren't that great. At a certain moment, the scenery of the abyss suddenly changed and a weird pavilion about 4 to 5 yards big appeared 20 to 30 yards away. From the pavilion came the sound of a lute and a beautiful woman sat there. The women had creamy white skin and thin black eyebrows. Her every smile was filled with limitless temptation, which made those that looked become dazed. Such a strange scene made the disciples wary. But when their eyes landed on the women, everyone felt a beauty go straight into their body and soul. This place was only 20 to 30 yards away, meaning that power of the winds was smaller. The hearts of everyone sped up and the eyes of Lu Hu, Sun Yuanhao and Quan Chun were filled with obsession. The weird thing was that even Lu Yuer and Ran Xiaoyuan had dazed expressions. Almost no one could resist the charm of the lute. Of the group, only Zhao Feng wasn't affected as he stared at her with twinkling eyes. The first to react was Yang Gan, then Lin Fan, who clenched his teeth and restrained himself. Zhao Feng was slightly impressed. He didn't think that Lin Fan's willpower was even better than Quan Chen's. Duh! Yang Gan exclaimed loudly and he woke up the remaining people. Brother Yang, it's only 20 to 30 yards away. Should we try? Quan Chun suggested. The woman in the pavilion was far too pretty. Like she was a goddess. 20 to 30 yards is the closest distance so far. Zhao Feng's eyes squinted as he estimated the success rate and the value of the items inside. Abyss of Death. In the dim dimension, a woman played the lute full of emotion. Her skin was like jade and she was like a perfect carving. Every smile she made was full of temptation. In the eyes of anyone, she was perfection. Even under Yang Gan's shouting, Quan Chun and company didn't really want to pass this reward. So beautiful, but way too queer. Lin Fan had a stunned expression on his face and his face turned red as he thought about the dazed look he had before. Turning his gaze to the side, Lin Fan found Zhao Feng's expression was the same as usual and he wasn't affected at all. From the beginning till now, Zhao Feng's expression didn't change. Lin Fan couldn't help but admire him. He didn't know whether it was because Zhao Feng's willpower was strong or it was because Zhao Feng didn't know information about sex. Shut up! Yang Gan took a deep breath and he forced himself to not look at the stunning girl as he coldly scanned Quan Chan and the others. This girl is definitely not simple to be able to appear here. Maybe you've already all been tricked. Hearing this, everyone understood what he meant. The floating crest palace was closed off from the outside world and it opened once every 5 years. It was way too weird to have an exotic girl here. Cold sweat poured down from the disciples' bodies as they didn't dare to look at the woman. Sister Yuan, what did you just see? Zhao Feng said to Lu Yuer deeply. Lu Yuer's face went bright red as she slightly panicked. The person in the pavilion was the perfect image in their hearts. Men saw beautiful women and women saw handsome men. This reward is close, but I encourage everyone to give up. The first trial is ending soon and according to the previous experiences in the Floating Crest Palace, there'll be at least some rewards if we pass the first stage. Yang Gan said to everyone. Then he immediately turned into a purple light as he sped off. There was a large amount of illusion mental strength in the pavilion, which tricked even me. If I was flying across and affected by the mental strength. Bei moi expressionlessly said and left decisively. Everyone was unwilling, but they knew that the pavilion was much too queer, so they had to give up and continue. Even someone like Quan Chun clenched his teeth and forced himself to look away. Brother Zhao. Lin Fan suddenly realized that Zhao Feng had no intentions of leaving. You go first. With your current speed, you can pass the first stage. Zhao Feng said calmly. Lin Fan was surprised, but he didn't question Zhao Feng and immediately left. Only Zhao Feng didn't move and he was the last person behind. Brother Zhao. A voice as loud as a quiet ant sounded from in front and glancing over. Zhao Feng saw Ran Xiaoyuan look worryingly towards him. I'm fine, you go first. Zhao Feng faintly smiled as he looked at her once before looking calmly in front again. Ran Xiaoyuan's fists were clenched and her eyebrows fluttered like she was worried that Zhao Feng had been tempted by the woman in the pavilion. Furthermore, Zhao Feng's expression showed that he wasn't going to listen to her. Tang! Zhao Feng's figure suddenly leapt into the air and like a fish swimming, he floated towards the pavilion. Don't! Ran Xiaoyuan exclaimed in shock. Every reward was filled with danger and the scenery in the pavilion was extremely queer. They couldn't see through it, so they didn't dare try. The powerful wind above the abyss swept up and down, forming wave after wave of attacks on Zhao Feng. Oh my god! Brother Zhao's been tricked. Some of the nearby disciples were still within range to see Zhao Feng's crazy actions. Apart from Ran Xiaoyuan, there was still Lu Hu, Lu Yuer and Sun Yuanhao. What a deep movement skill! One of the three core disciples, Lu Hu, was surprised. A layer of azure enveloped Zhao Feng, which made him merge into the wind and pass through the tiniest gaps of the wind. He used the power of the wind at the same time to push himself forward. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Feng had leapt out tens of yards. It was at this time that the scene in the pavilion changed. The exotic woman stood up and smiled at Zhao Feng. Such a stunning view made Lu Hu and company dazed. Could be imagined how terrible it was for Zhao Feng to face such a situation. Beautiful. Zhao Feng smiled mockingly midair and he kept on running in the air like he wasn't affected at all. The girl in the pavilion was slightly surprised and she didn't think a brat, that hadn't even reached the third sky of the ascended realm, could block her illusion created from mental strength. Tang! Zhao Feng's figure swiftly landed on the pavilion and the scene shocked Lu Hu and the others. Husband! The girl smiled emotionally as she began to undress, revealing her snow-white skin beneath. The exotic beauty slowly took off her clothes, showing off her perfect body. It was such a breathtaking moment. Fuck off! A light flashed in Zhao Feng's eye as he kicked out. The beauty, who was just undressing, flew backwards and hit the pole with a doom. You! The girl spat out a mouthful of blood as her face became pale white. Ah! This scene made the jaws of those watching drop. Zhao Feng was way too brutal. So, the beauty suddenly turned into a wisp of purple smoke and the next instant, a purple fox was seen trembling in a cage. The scene of the fox trapped was extremely queer. This is an illusion fox, which is a Yao beast, a tier higher than deadly beasts. Lu Hu exclaimed. Deadly beasts were a terrifying existence, but they didn't have their own mind and they only had a faint bloodline of Yao beasts or were tainted by pollution. True Yao beasts had high intelligence and bloodline of ancient races. They were ranked higher than deadly beasts and they could even cultivate. The Lord-tier deadly beast at the Guanjuan province city that day was the lowest Yao beast, and it was on par with those at the Ascended Realm. In the Green Flower continent, only a very low number of beasts had the power to flip the oceans and lead an army of beasts, which could easily destroy a few countries. Of course, the world of beasts had their own laws and there was a balance between them and the clans. The illusion fox has probably reached the fifth sky of the Ascended Realm. Lu Hu's eyes twinkled with wariness. Fifth sky of the Ascended Realm, this had also surpassed Yanggon, who had the highest cultivation here. But the illusion fox's forte was illusions created from mental energy, and even Yanggon wouldn't be able to block the mental energy while crossing the abyss. Brat! I'm going to tear you to shreds, the illusion fox said hatefully as it ground its teeth. If it wasn't because of the cage, it could easily rip humans at the second or third sky of the Ascended Realm into pieces. Zhao Feng didn't bother listening to it and went to the stone table in the middle of the pavilion. On the table was a plate of fruit, a bottle or wine, a bracelet, and the lute. Zhao Feng extended his hand to grab one of the fruits to check what it was. This should be the purple spiritual fruit that recovers body and mental strength. Zhao Feng took the 4 to 5 fruits and then smelled the bottle of wine. This should be a low spiritual wine that can recover one's energy for those at the ascended realm. Gulu! Zhao Feng took a small sip and he instantly felt his true force, mental energy, and stamina recover. After running for 2 days straight under pressure and tiredness, Zhao Feng was on the verge of increasing his cultivation. The last item was a bracelet, and grabbing it, Zhao Feng laughed. This should be an interspatial bracelet, and the worst interspatial storage items are valued a high-grade mortal weapon already. This bracelet was an item that could store things, and its value was much greater than everything else on the table summed up. What? Interspatial bracelet? Shock appeared on Lu Hu and Ko's faces. The worst interspatial item is already worth a high-grade mortal weapon. Lu Hu's voice slight trembled as greed appeared in his eyes. High-grade mortal weapons were at least 1 million substandard primal crystal stones or 10,000 low-grade primal crystal stones. Furthermore, items that could store things were rare. Zhao Feng picked up the bracelet and he merged his consciousness inside. He felt the 1 meter cubed area inside. Shwa! Shwa! The purple spiritual fruit and bottle of wine disappeared as they were stored inside the interspatial bracelet. Interspatial items are indeed mysterious. Zhao Feng was overjoyed, and he couldn't help but remember how he had looked through all the books to gather knowledge. Finally, his eyes landed on the lute lying on the table, and it was instantly stored in the bracelet as well. The lute was a middle-grade mortal weapon which Zhao Feng had seen straight away, but musical weapons didn't interest him much, nor did he want to use it. However, it could be exchanged for a sum of primal crystal stones to pay off the debt he had with Old Man Zhang, and he could even buy the Luohua arrows if he was lucky. Kid, don't get cocky. The illusion fox howled, and she was extremely angry at Zhao Feng for ignoring her. The fox once again sent a bunch of illusions, but Zhao Feng had a super strong resilience against it and no damage was caused. He had already seen the true figure of the girl when the pavilion had appeared, therefore he didn't even get affected. Tang! Zhao Feng's body was like a fish as it swam through the air and landed back on the black and gold road in a few breaths. Ran Xiaoyuan's small mouth was wide open with surprise. Brother Zhao, your rewards are great. You shouldn't keep them all to yourself, right? Lu Hu let a hee-hee, and he didn't hide the greed on his face. A large, powerful true force circulated in his body, and he sent out an aura that much stronger than the normal fourth sky aura. Lu Hu was one of the 3 core disciples whose forte was body strengthening. His strength exceeded even Quan Chun. You dare to attack me? Zhao Feng said coldly as his azure hair blew in the wind. On the black and gold road, Zhao Feng faced off against the core disciple Lu Hu. Do you dare to attack me? Zhao Feng said coldly as his hair blew in the air. On the side, Ran Xiaoyuan's expression also changed slightly, and she stepped next to Zhao Feng. Sun Yuanhao didn't seem to have reacted and started to panic. The atmosphere became tense. Lu Hu's expression suddenly changed as he remembered that Zhao Feng had first elder backing. Furthermore, Ran Xiaoyuan had stepped next to Zhao Feng. Ran Xiaoyuan was a disciple of the clan master, and she had the same strength as Bei Moi. A smile appeared on Zhao Feng as he knew that Lu Hu wanted a share, but he didn't have the guts to attack. Brother Zhao, I'll help you. A pure, innocent smile appeared on Sun Yuanhao's baby face. At this point in time, both Ran Xiaoyuan and Sun Yuanhao were on Zhao Feng's side. Even if Zhao Feng's side didn't have any background, Lu Hu would be wary. Hand over the interspatial bracelet. Lu Hu's face was dim, but suddenly, he clenched his teeth and leapt at Zhao Feng and company. What's he going to do? Zhao Feng's heart skipped a beat, and he didn't think that Lu Hu would still attack under this situation. Wait, there's something wrong. Zhao Feng suddenly remembered something and glanced towards the pavilion. The eyes of the illusion fox inside the cage had turned purple as a smile of mockery appeared on its face. Lu Hu's eyes was full of greed and he had lost his mind. He was originally greedy, and when the illusion fox put an illusion skill on him, The greed in his heart increased by 10 times. I forgot about this foxy bastard. Zhao Feng's expression became solemn as he decided to block Lu Hu first. The latter was at the fourth sky of the Ascended Realm and he had reached a high level in body strengthening. Wind Lightning Destruction. Zhao Feng used his Heavenly Wind God technique and Silver Wall technique without hesitation, and he managed to just block Lu Hu's crazy attacks. Feng. After taking a hit head-on, Zhao Feng's figure retreated a few steps. Without using his left eye and his bloodline power, Zhao Feng didn't have the upper hand. Brother Zhao. Hand over the interspatial bracelet. A cold youth's voice sounded from the side. What? Zhao Feng felt a wave of air come towards him from behind and his expression changed dramatically. The person was Sun Yuanhao. Ha 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 ha. Lu Hu laughed insanely as his attacks became fiercer. Now Zhao Feng was facing 2 attacks from the front and back respectively. Stop! Ran Xiaoyuan exclaimed as she turned into a blur and blocked Sun Yuanhao. Pong! Sun Yuanhao was pushed back by Ran Xiaoyuan in one move. Zhao Feng couldn't help but sweat and feel lucky that Ran Xiaoyuan wasn't affected by the illusion fox. One had to know that her strength was on par with Beimuo's, and if he faced the attacks of all 3, he could only run even if he used the power of his bloodline. The illusions of the illusion fox could affect Sun Yuanhao and Lu Hu because they were already greedy and had weak will, while Ran Xiaoyuan wasn't greedy. Ran Xiaoyuan suppressing Sun Yuanhao made the situation better. But Zhao Feng was facing a core disciple of the fourth sky, and it was already a considerable feat to not lose. Looks like this is the only way, Zhao Feng thought. Shua! Zhao Feng's figure blurred and left a bunch of after images behind. His body was like the fish, agile and fast as he retreated under Lu Hu's attacks. In terms of cultivation and body strengthening, Lu Hu was better than Zhao Feng, but the latter was better in movement. Lu Hu was overwhelmed by greed, and he didn't realize that Zhao Feng was retreating towards Sun Yuanhao and Ran Xiaoyuan. I'll first take care of you. Zhao Feng's speed suddenly increased and disappeared from Lu Hu's attack range. He appeared at Sun Yuanhao's side the next instant. The latter was originally suppressed by Ran Xiaoyuan and he couldn't react to Zhao Feng's sneak attack. Lightning Wind Palm. Zhao Feng thrust out a palm as thunder boomed and the wind howled. Wah! Sun Yuanhao managed to block that palm, but he was forced back to the edge of road and spat out a mouthful of blood. Go down! Zhao Feng kicked Sun Yuanhao into the abyss with one kick. Ah! Sun Yuanhao screamed as he fell into the abyss. Brother Zhao, you killed him. Ran Xiaoyuan's face was pale white as she didn't know what to do. Zhao Feng's plan was to first finish off Sun Yuanhao, who was weaker, so they could team up and fight Lu Hu. His will is weak and he was influenced by the fox, so we needed to take care of him first. Zhao Feng didn't feel guilty at all. Sun Yuanhao had a pure and innocent baby face, but he was extremely cunning. Floating Crest Palace, the entrance. The 4 elders and clan master sat crossed-legged there. Wang! The azure door suddenly brightened and a figure rolled out. Another person came out. So fast. Haiyun Master's heart skipped but a beat but let out a breath as he saw who it was. Yuanhao! Elder Shui exclaimed as he stared at the pale-faced Sun Yuanhao. First Elder and company didn't know what to do. The person who was kicked out was Elder Shui's disciple, Sun Yuanhao, who had the changeable body. Yuanhao, how did you come out so quickly? Elder Shui said deeply. It's Zhao Feng. He took all the treasures himself and kicked me down the abyss. Sun Yuanhao's face was bright red as he said angrily. He was still affected by the illusion right now and he hadn't calmed down yet. How dare he do that? This Zhao Feng even attacks others from the same clan. Elder Shui was furious. The Floating Crest trial was once every 5 years and every disciple only had one chance. Sun Yuanhao's talent was great and he was even younger than Zhao Feng. If he was successful in the trial, his cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. However, this hope was destroyed by someone that had a low-tier spiritual body. Is there a misunderstanding here? First Elder said deeply. He knew that Zhao Feng seemed arrogant, but he was actually extremely calm. That Zhao Feng's trained the lightning wind palm, which means he's not normal. A smirk appeared on Haiyun Master's face. Hearing this, Elder Shui, Granny Luiyue and the clan master all nodded their heads. I'll wait after the trial to question him. First, Elder, I'll hand this over to the regulation division, which will be fair. Elder Shui took in a deep breath as he suppressed the raging flames of anger in his heart. If it wasn't because Zhao Feng's master was first elder, he would have exploded already. Wang, Gulu. The azure door flashed as another figure rolled out. So fast. The 5 at the true spirit realm were all stunned. How long had it been since the last person was kicked out? The elders focused on the figure, and they found that it was core disciple Lu Hu. What happened in the trial to make even core disciples to get kicked out? The expressions of the clan master and company were all solemn. Lu Hu, how did you exit so early? The Broken Moon clan master asked. They were all familiar with Lu Hu, since the latter was a core disciple and a disciple of the regulation elder. In the clan, the regulation elder had authority on the same level as the clan master and first elder because they held the power to kill and punish. It was Zhao Feng. He wanted to keep all the treasures to himself and kicked me down the abyss. Lu Hu said through gritted teeth. He was the same as Sun Yuanhao and was still under the illusion fox's spell. Zhao Feng again. The 4 elders and clan master were full of shock and rage. The floating crest trial not only changed the destiny of the disciples that participated, it could also change the destiny of the clan. And now Zhao Feng had sent a core disciple and another disciple with a changeable body out in half the time it took tea to boil. Furthermore, he had used the same method by kicking them into the abyss. This Zhao Feng is so bad. The other elders looked at each other with anger in their eyes. How could you be beaten by Zhao Feng? First elder caught onto something suspicious. Lu Hu's strength was just under Yang Gone. This is because of junior sister Ran. Lu Hu said angrily. What has this got to do with Xiao Yuan? The clan master's eyebrows rose. In her eyes, Ran Xiao Yuan was always an obedient child. Sister Ran helped that bastard Zhao Feng or else. Disciple I wouldn't have lost. Lu Hu screamed as his 2 fists clenched together tightly. How was this possible? The expressions of the 4 elders and the clan master changed. Indeed, Ran Xiaoyuan's strength was on the same level as Bei Moi and she was able to exchange moves with those at the 4th sky. If she teamed up with Zhao Feng, there was a chance of beating Lu Hu. But why would Ran Xiaoyuan team up with Zhao Feng? Could it be? The clan master suddenly remembered how Zhao Feng had purposely lost to Ran Xiaoyuan in the floating crest competition, and then linked it up with what Sister Yuan had said. The expression of the Broken Moon clan master made the others remember what had happened when the 2 fought. This Zhao Feng even made someone as pure and innocent as Xiao Yuan. The clan master's face was cold as anger appeared on her holy face. At one time, the elders were speechless. Finally, they reached an agreement. We must punish this Zhao Feng, on the black and gold road. Pong! Zhao Feng sent Lu Hu flying with 1 kick and wiped the sweat on his forehead. This Lu Hu is indeed much stronger. Thanks to Sister Ran, we were able to beat him. They're all... Ran Xiaoyuan's eyes turned red as she sobbed. She wanted to help Zhao Feng before because the latter was being bullied. But now, Lu Hu and Sun Yuanhao had both been kicked into the abyss. Zhao Feng was somewhat guilty to Ran Xiaoyuan because it was his fault that Ran Xiaoyuan was a helper. It's okay, there's a weird array here so that when one falls into the abyss, they won't die and will get sent out anyway, Zhao Feng assured. With his left eye, he had total control of his surroundings. Tang! Zhao Feng's figure leapt into the air and landed in front of the pavilion again. What do you want to do? The illusion fox screamed in fear and anger. Want to do? It's all because of you. Zhao Feng ignored the mental energy attack and he stomped his foot forward. Boom! After Sun Yuanhao and Lu Hu, Zhao Feng kicked another beast into the abyss. After kicking the fox into the abyss, Zhao Feng had a satisfied feeling, like he was slightly addicted to doing this. However, he understood that the elders outside would have a bad image of him. But luckily, Ran Xiaoyuan was dragged into deep waters by Zhao Feng as well, so there would be at least a witness. Everything in this world is about strength. When I get a terrifying score, what can the elders do to me? Zhao Feng's figure leapt into the air and he returned to the black and gold road. After running through the air twice, even core disciples at the fourth sky would feel tired. But Zhao Feng had a low-grade spiritual wine inside his interspatial bracelet, which refilled his energy as well as increasing his cultivation. Jiang! Jiang! Loud shaking footsteps suddenly shook from behind and a massive shadow appeared. Not good, run! Zhao Feng's left eye saw the gigantic two-winged black monster, and he immediately signaled for Ran Xiaoyuan to run. The two sprinted and they finally escaped from the black shadow. Any time they wasted in the first round could mean death. After some time, Ran Xiaoyuan had tears in her eyes. Sister Ran, what happened? Zhao Feng asked curiously. It's all my fault that Brother Lu and Brother Sun got kicked out of the trial. Sister Yuan is right. You're not a good person. Ran Xiaoyuan sobbed and ignored Zhao Feng as she turned into an afterimage as she sprinted off. Zhao Feng shook his head and he maintained his speed. Half a day later, the black and metal road seemed to have reached an end and there was a big green door at the end. In front of the door was 5 to 6 people who were all sitting cross-legged on the ground, recovering their energy. Any disciple would be tired after being chased for 3 days and 3 nights. Brother Zhao, you're finally here. Lin Fan let out a breath. He worried for Zhao Feng all the way here, and the latter being here meant that he had reaped the rewards from before. You first eat this purple spiritual fruit. Zhao Feng handed over a fruit, and after Lin Fan ate it, the latter instantly felt his energy recover and his cultivation rise a little bit. Zhao Feng had drunk low-grade spiritual wine and ate a purple spiritual fruit, which had pushed his cultivation to the peak 2 RD sky. The floating crest trial is indeed full of rewards. I originally needed at least a month to reach the peak 2nd sky, but I'm already at it in 3 days. Zhao Feng was overjoyed. His eyes twinkled as he saw Ran Xiaoyuan nearby, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and he gave her another purple spiritual fruit. His actions were sensed by the others. Brother Zhao, it looks like you got the rewards from a certain place. Not only did you get spiritual fruits, you also got an interspatial bracelet. Quan Chun said as he stared at Zhao Feng's bracelet. His words immediately caught the attention of others, and even Yang Gan's eyes twinkled as he glanced at Zhao Feng. I was just a bit lucky. Zhao Feng didn't decide to hide this since the interspatial bracelet was very handy. Now that there was no illusion fox, the others wouldn't dare to steal it right here and now, even if they wanted to. Another while later, Jiang! Jiang! Terrifying footsteps sounded in the darkness. The black metal monster was coming. The hearts of everyone jumped, but the green door behind them didn't open. Right at this moment, in their heads, a sound appeared. The abyss of death has finished. Successful people are now awarded 30 points for the first trial. Huang, the green door then immediately opened and the black metal monster behind them stopped, like had become stone. Brother Sun and Brother Lu didn't pass the first trial? Yang Gan said surprised as he scanned across the group. Sun Yuanhao didn't really matter, but Lu, who was a core disciple whose strength was only weaker than his. Brother Lu and Brother Sun were hit by illusions from an illusion fox and fell into the abyss. Zhao Feng exclaimed. Quan Chan and Yang Gan were both full of suspicion, the former especially so. So the two fell into the abyss and only you got the treasures and retreated without being harmed. Zhao Feng humphed coldly in response, and he was too lazy to answer properly. This attitude made Quan Chin extremely angry. Zhao Feng hadn't even entered the clan for that long and he already dared to ignore him. Thinking back the day when he had gone to the Guanjuan Palace and crushed Lord Guanjuan and taken away Bei Moi, Quan Chen didn't even pay attention to this ant. When did such an ant reach such a high level and dare to ignore him? We'll talk about this after the trial. Right now, everyone shall focus on the trial. Yang Gan looked deeply at Zhao Feng and ended the talk. Sang. Sang. So, the group of 7 entered the green door under the command of the voice in their heads. The group entered a dim cave in the next instant. Like before, the place was dark and there would be the occasional screech from bats. The 7 disciples felt a cold aura here, which made them feel unsafe. Everyone watch out. The dangers in this bat cave is probably even greater than the first trial. Yang Gan warned as he led the way at the front. Zhao Feng scanned the surroundings with his left eye and all the dangers were found. The second trial is called the Lost Bat Cave. Lost. Zhao Feng focused on the word, lost. He analyzed that the second trial's landscape would be extremely complicated and dangers would lie amongst it at the same time. Yang Gan's cultivation was the highest, meaning he had the strongest senses and he could already feel the dangers ahead. Stay close to me and never leave a 1-yard radius, Zhao Feng said to Lin Fan. The latter nodded his head. He could also feel the dangers beyond. The group of 7 headed towards the depths of the cave in one straight line, but before 100 yards another intersection came up. Which path to take? Yang Gan instantly felt his head hurt. At this rate it would be extremely hard, if not impossible, to walk out of the cave. A smirk appeared on Zhao Feng's face. A map had appeared in his mind, which had the paths he had just taken. It was the same as a real map, where all the paths they had taken had been scanned into his mind. As for the places that they had not explored, they were black spots. With a power like this, even massive mazes would be broken by Zhao Feng. Therefore, he wasn't worried at all and he acted like a tourist would. Zhao Feng's attitude fell into Lin Fan's eyes as mysterious and mighty. This brother Zhao is far too mysterious. It's like the floating crest palace is his back garden. Lin Fan was speechless, with some admiration. Facing another intersection, Yang Gan suggested, "Why not let Brother Quan and I both lead a team and leave behind some marks on the paths we take?" No one rejected this proposition, and through discussion, the teams were as so: Yang Gan, Bei Moi and Lu Yuer, Quan Qin, Zhao Feng, Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan. Zhao Feng didn't say anything, but Quan Qin's eyes grew cold. As the two groups separated, screeches of bats came from within the caves as the bats flew out. Zhao Feng saw that these bats had weird red lines on them and their eyes were blood red. The screeches from these black blood bats chilled their eyes. From one of the entrances came out tens of black blood bats, which charged at Zhao Feng and company. Attack! A silver line appeared in Quan Chen's palm as he instantly killed 3 black blood bats. The bats were mainly at the first or second sky of the ascended realm, and only one of them was at the third sky. It sent out a sonic wave, which moved their consciousness. Lin Fan's blood boiled as he barely managed to block it, and he slayed another black blood bat in front of him. Zhao Feng thrust out 2 palms and he killed a few black blood bats. A while later, all the bats were slain apart from the bat at the third sky, which screeched and leapt into the air to escape. Bang! So a dark green arrow flashed as fast as lightning and it sank itself into the stomach of the bat. Plop! The body of the leading bat fell down and the rest of group glanced at Zhao Feng's Luoho Bao. The power of the Luoho Bao didn't disappoint. It was able to slay the bat with just a bit of true force. The bat's speed was extremely fast. If he used the Golden Stairs Bao, the speed of the arrow wouldn't be able to catch up and the leader bat could dodge it. After successfully killing a nest of bats, the group then proceeded to explore again, and as they went deeper, the map inside Zhao Feng's mind slowly expanded. But at the same time, the unknown black areas also became bigger. Zhao Feng's expression was slightly solemn because the size of this bat cave was much larger than expected. After walking for another while, another group of bats appeared mainly at the first and second sky. The second trial requires the participants to walk out in 5 days. Under this situation, we'll be tired to death, Zhao Feng analyzed. In just an hour's time, Quan Chen's group had faced the attacks of 100 bats. Everyone rest a bit. Quan Chen sat cross-legged on the ground to recover his energy. Zhao Feng, Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan were a bit better since they had eaten the purple spiritual fruit, meaning that the energy in their bodies was still pretty full. The remaining energy could last another day or 2. See, a figure as small as a line suddenly appeared from within the cave and it merged with the surroundings. What is it? Quan Chin felt his waist hurt like he had been bitten. Shua! A gray poisonous snake dodged Quan Chen's true force and flashed away. Not good. That is a Yao snake, which is poisonous. Quan Chun moaned in pain as the part where he had been bitten started to become purple and numb. At this point in time, cold sweat flooded down from his forehead. Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan both felt cold. Is it this snake? Zhao Feng smiled as his 2 fingers pinched a gray poisonous snake that kept on struggling. The gray poisonous snake was around 3 inches long and it was just slightly thicker than a thumb. The power contained in the snake twisting could easily kill a cultivator at the first sky. But Zhao Feng's fingers were like iron as they clamped over the snake. Kill it? Not good. I'm poisoned. Quan Chen's face was green as he sat on the ground, trying to force the poison out. Both Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan looked at Zhao Feng weirdly. The snake was silent and it had merged with its surroundings. Even Quan Chen had been bitten, and even though the latter may have been careless due to tiredness, the snake's deadliness could still be seen. But Zhao Feng seemed like he already had his guard to catch the snake so easily. Lin Fan was even suspicious that Zhao Feng already knew that the snake was there, but he didn't warn Quan Chen on purpose. It's the gray shadow dark snake, one of the most poisonous Yao beasts with the effect of numbing the opponent. Within an hour, the poison will spread throughout the body and even cultivators at the Ascended Realm will lose control of their body, until they die of starvation. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. Hearing this, Quan Chen's face was gray because he had just eaten a detoxification spiritual pill, but it had no effect. Zhao Feng swiftly crushed the gray shadow poisonous snake and he took out the snake bile then ate it. The bile's flavor was bitter and spicy, but after it entered the body, a hot, flaming feeling spread throughout his body. The energy in the snake bile can strengthen one's soul and purify true force. This trial is indeed full of treasures. Zhao Feng licked his lips as a satisfied expression appeared. Being a recognized genius in the clan, he knew a lot about pills and poisons. Brother Zhao, you're a pill genius. You must know how to detoxify this poison. Quan Chen squeezed out a smile. There's no cure. Zhao Feng shook his head and he looked at Quan Chen like he was looking at a dead person. He ignored Quan Chen's begging and cursing and surveyed the surroundings. A while later, where are you going to run? Zhao Feng's figure flashed as he caught another gray shadow poisonous snake. Like before, Zhao Feng took out the snake's bile and ate it. The bile could strengthen the body and purify true force, creating a solid foundation for Zhao Feng to reach the third sky. Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan were both stunned and dazed. The gray shadow poisonous snake's forte was hiding and merging with its surroundings, but Zhao Feng had once again found and killed the snake. After a bit of time, the poison in Quan Chen's body slowly faded away. How dare you trick me? Quan Chen said in anger. The poison could be fought back by his fourth sky cultivation. Zhao Feng's words just then were probably just trying to scare him. I didn't lie to you. The snake can't threaten those at the fourth sky of the Ascended Realm, so there's no need for a cure. Zhao Feng said playfully. It was actually very easy to cure the poison. All one needed was to be at the second sky of the Ascended Realm and circulate their blood and true force throughout their bodies. Zhao Feng had only told Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan about this point in secret. Zhao Feng was the only person who was knowledgeable about medicines amongst those who entered the Bat Cave. Of course, there was another person who might know medicine, and that was Lu Yue. Her master was Granny Lu Yue, the best pill master in the clan. Being her disciple, Lu Yue should have learnt a lot. Let's go. Quan Chen's expression was extremely ugly, but there was nothing he could do. Zhao Feng was like a fish in the water right now, and he was much better suited for survival. Furthermore, both Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan seemed to listen to Zhao Feng. For the next 1 day and 1 night, the group of 4 scouted around the maze. Every once in a while, they would face the attacks of the black blood bats. Apart from that, there was also dangerous Yao beasts hiding in the caves, such as the gray shadow poisonous snake, butterflies, and even pythons. Zhao Feng seemed like he controlled everything, and he only helped Lin Fan and Ran Xiaoyuan once or twice. Quan Chen was the one who faced everything, and he got extremely tired, while Zhao Feng and company were like fish in the water. On the way, Zhao Feng slew many snakes and ate their biles, which allowed him to reach the requirements needed to break through to the third sky. Therefore, he gave some of the bile to Lin Fan, and the latter had now reached the late stages of the second sky due to the purple spiritual fruit and snake biles. This Zhao Feng is far too weird. Quan Chen's hairs stood up on their ends. Under this situation, not only was he not able to calculate Zhao Feng, it was him that met danger every time. Luckily, he was at the fourth sky of the Ascended Realm, which allowed him to survive. Quan Chun decided to split with Zhao Feng because it was he himself who was in danger every time. This was too big a coincidence. He felt like Zhao Feng had been calculating it every time. "We've been here before," Zhao Feng suddenly said as he pointed at an intersection. On the way, he had kept perfecting the map in his mind, but the map hadn't been fully completed yet. Zhao Feng analyzed and estimated that they should have walked around 1/3 of the way, and in another day, they should be able to find the position of the exit. "Brother Zhao, because your memory and reaction speed is so great, why don't you lead the way?" Quan Chin purposely said. "Sure," Zhao Feng immediately answered. This way he could go explore the places they hadn't been to before and find the way out. The result was Zhao Feng's path had a very high encounter rate with the black blood bats. The further they went, the more bats there were. Zhao Feng felt uneasy, like there was a bat nest up ahead. Just while he was thinking this, a large number of screeches could be heard from the area ahead. The limitless sounds of flying beasts sounded from within the caves. "Retreat." Zhao Feng's expression changed dramatically. His figure flashed just as a heart-shaking screech containing mental energy sounded. Everyone felt their minds hurt, and Lin Fan's ears and nose leaked blood. The next instant, a solid, full 100 or so black blood bats leapt at the fore. The bat leader, at the front, had a wingspan of 2 to 3 yards, and every stroke he took would blow the dust into the air. It was a bat king, and it let out an ear-piercing screech, which caused the true force of the group to lose control. The bat's cultivation was probably close to the fifth sky. Looking at the bunch of black bats, Zhao Feng's hair stood up. But luckily, the screech from the Bat King didn't affect him. The four were surrounded and fought a tough battle. At critical points, they used their killing moves. Lightning Wind Palm. Zhao Feng thrust out one palm after another, which slew a few bats every time. Back Wave Sword Technique. Lin Fan held his long sword and he waved it through the air, causing airwaves which enveloped the nearby bats. Quan Chun had the highest cultivation, and he teamed up with Ran Xiaoyuan to fight the Bat King. The Bat King screeched multiple times, which affected their consciousness, and Quan Chun and Ran Xiaoyuan couldn't take it down in a short amount of time. At the same time, the black blood bats nearby grew in number, with each of them at least at the first sky. Break! Quan Chun suddenly pulled out a long bronze sword and he sliced forward. This one sword instantly killed tens of bats, and it left a bloody mark so deep that the bone could be seen on the Bat King. That one sword had forced the Bat King to retreat. Middle-grade mortal weapon. Zhao Feng was slightly surprised. It was a middle-grade mortal weapon, the same as Lu Yuer's. But it was 2 to 3 times stronger than when in the hands of Quan Chin. Good chance to slay the Bat King. Zhao Feng's eyes lit up. Run! However, Quan Chun suddenly turned around and sliced heavily towards one of the exits before heading in that direction. Run! Quan Chen's actions made Zhao Feng surprised, because if Quan Chen and Ran Xiaoyuan lasted a bit longer, they could slay the Bat King. But Zhao Feng didn't know that Quan Chen wanted to leave Zhao Feng. Run separately. Facing such a vast amount of bats, Zhao Feng soon made his decision. Coincidentally, there were many paths here. Quan Chun chose one, while Ran Xiaoyuan chose another. Because Lin Fan remembered what Zhao Feng had said, the two took the same path. Quan Chun and Ran Xiaoyuan are both disciples of an elder and the clan master respectively, meaning that they both have their own hidden tricks. Zhao Feng thought, and he didn't call Ran Xiaoyuan. The group of bats soon split into 3, and the Bat King charged after Quan Chin. 2 other bats at the 3rd sky of the Ascended Realm both led a bunch of bats and charged after Ran Xiaoyuan. Zhao Feng and Lin Fan were unlucky. There was a total of 4 bats at the 3rd sky, leading a horde of black blood bats following the 2 because there were more people here. Damn it! So unlucky! Zhao Feng cursed as he realized that the path in front was a dead end. The bats following them were 70 to 80 in number, with the 4 leaders at the 3rd sky of the Ascended Realm. Brother Zhao, don't worry about me. You fight your way out. Lin Fan understood that Zhao Feng was far stronger than him, and as long as the latter didn't meet the Bat King, he could escape. There's no chance. Zhao Feng stood where he was and shook his head. The 70 to 80 black blood bats screeched one after another, sending waves of sonic waves which enveloped the two in mental energy. The screeching together couldn't even be blocked by cultivators at the fourth sky of the ascended realm. Plop! Blood leaked out of Lin Fan's mouth, ears and nose as he passed out. It's better this way. Zhao Feng stood at the center of the mental energy attack and he circulated his true force to block the mental energy. Inside the dimension of his left eye, the azure light had reached 2 foot 2 inches and it kept on absorbing the mental energy from the attack. Zhao Feng slowly took off his eye patch as his hair wavered in the wind. Mental energy assassination. A sharp azure eye releasing an ancient aura appeared, like it was the Lord of Darkness. Wave after wave of black blood bats screeched in the cave, sending limitless mental energy attacks through the air. They shook the nearby walls, blowing dust everywhere. Even core disciples at the fourth sky of the ascended realm would be killed. In the center of the bats, an azure-haired youth stood mountain still like a king. The mental energy attacks were like stones that sunk into the ocean. The aura of the azure figure suddenly rose rapidly and a sharp and transparent light shot out of his left eye, which spread out in all directions. Instantly, expressions of fear appeared in the eyes of the nearby bats and the ones closer to the figure froze mid-air, like they had been petrified. Talk! 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 A few of the weaker bats fell onto the ground as blood leaked from their eyes and noses. Most of the black blood bats trembled in the air, and they didn't dare advance any further towards Zhao Feng. The only ones that were able to barely withstand it were the 4 bat leaders at third sky of the ascended realm. The leaders instinctively sent out another wave of mental energy sound attacks. Zhao Feng circulated his left eye and the azure light in his left eye had reached 2 foot 9, which supplied Zhao Feng's mental energy and the latter could feel the massive source of mental energy in him. But only a small amount could be withdrawn since he didn't know how to use it. But even then, the mental energy assassination spike could stun so many black blood bats. These bats know how to control their mental energy since birth. Zhao Feng's left eye became sharp and the bat leader's body became transparent, revealing the organs, blood vessels, as well as the Yao energy inside. In the bat leader's body, Zhao Feng saw a faint red mental energy source around the size of a grain of rice in its head. Normal people wouldn't be able to sense mental energy, but Zhao Feng's left eye could clearly see the mental energy source as well as the way to use it. Mental energy must be used at a specific frequency. A diagram appeared in Zhao Feng's head. Although the bat's body was different to a human's, the way they used mental energy was the same and the method was copied into the dimension of Zhao Feng's left eye. Boy! Zhao Feng circulated his true force as a queer sound appeared from his mouth, which contained a trace of mental energy. Talk! 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 Waves of black blood bats fell down from the sky as blood leaked from their noses, ears and eyes. All the black blood bats under the third sky of the ascended realm couldn't withstand this attack. This sound attack contains shocking from my true force. Adding mental energy makes it far more effective on these bats. Joy appeared on Zhao Feng's face. The organs of the bats that fell from the air would be destroyed, and even if some survived, they would be crippled. Just one sound attack made 10 to 20 bats fall. Boy, the remaining bats scattered in different directions due to fear. Zhao Feng opened his mouth the second time, but even then tens of bats were left on the ground. Even the 4 bats at the third sky of the ascended realm ran away in fear. Where shall you run? Zhao Feng laughed coldly as he took out his Luoho bow. His left eye flashed in azure and the power of Zhao Feng's archery skills rose. So! A few dark azure-colored arrows pierced the 4 black blood bats at the third sky of the ascended realm with unbelievable speed. The Luoho bow could surpass the speed of sound at best, but Zhao Feng could only use a bit of its power. But even then, the black blood bats weren't able to dodge its arrows. When Zhao Feng withdrew his Luoho bow, the nearby black blood bats had already disappeared from view. Zhao Feng shook his head and he put the eye patch back on. The mental energy attack just then that originated from his mouth meant that wearing the eye patch didn't make much of a difference. Through this battle, Zhao Feng had found the way to use his mental energy. Instinct told him the true potential of his left eye hadn't been reached yet. What the heck is going on? Why are the nearby bats running? It seems like they don't have clear consciousness as well. A ruffled nut beautiful girl walked close to Zhao Feng's cave with a stunned expression. She was Lu Yuer, who had parted ways with them earlier. The team that she was in had met a large group of bats not long ago, and Yanggon had led the strongest as well largest amount of bats away while the others ran. Lu Yuer was finally able to escape from the bats chasing her. But unfortunately, she met another group of bats with a number so large that it could threaten her. But somehow, these bats seemed to be in fear, and they were like headless flies flying in different directions. After walking for another tens of yards, Lu Yuer glanced at the bats at the ground, and she saw that some of the bats had died while others were struggling at the ground with blood leaking from their eyes, ears and nose. Lu Yuer's heart shook as she thought about who could be so terrifying as to kill the numerous number of bats without leaving a tracker. The bats on the ground had no obvious injuries, but the organs as well as the vessels inside them had been destroyed, and they had no clear consciousness. "Sister Lu." A cold voice sounded from the corner in front. Lu Yuer jumped up in surprise, but after seeing who it was, she let out a breath. Zhao Feng sat on the ground cross-legged like he was healing. But from the way he circulated his true force, it was like he was cultivating as well. Next to him was Lin Fan, who was already awake and healing. "Were these bats all?" Lu Yuer asked carefully. Next to Zhao Feng were bodies of many bats, including 3 to 4 bat leaders whose vitals had been pierced by arrows. Zhao Feng didn't respond, and he started to cultivate while pushing his heavenly wind true force to the max. He had reached a high level in his heavenly wind god technique, and the purification of his true force was on par with those at the 4th sky of the ascended realm. In terms of his body, his silver wall technique had reached the highest level possible. Drinking some spiritual wine and eating spiritual fruit as well as the snake bile increased his attributes to the peak 2nd sky. Under the desperate situation, Zhao Feng had maximized his potential, and he had the half-step 3rd sky. Now, the quantity as well as the quality of Zhao Feng's true force rose steadily as he cultivated. To increase his cultivation speed, Zhao Feng would take a small sip of spiritual wine every couple hours. The low-grade spiritual wine had a great effect for those under the 4th sky of the ascended realm. Lin Fan sat next to Zhao Feng and guarded him with a complex expression. After he had fainted, Lin Fan had no clue what had happened. When he had woken up, Zhao Feng wasn't injured at all, but corpses of bats lay nearby in vast quantities. How familiar was this scene with the Scarlet Moon demonic cave? Zhao Feng didn't leave immediately, and he cultivated instead. Half a day later, Zhao Feng reached the 3rd sky of the ascended realm, and he released a chaotic aura. The difference between every sky in the ascended realm was massive. It was a change in the food chain. The ones with lower cultivation would be suppressed. Difference in the food chain. At this moment, both Lin Fan and Lu Yuer felt an unknown pressure, and they felt uneasy. Lu Yuer had extremely complex emotions. Although she had reached the peak 2nd sky, she didn't have the requirements to reach the 3rd sky yet. "Okay, let's go now." Zhao Feng rose slowly as his eyes sharpened, and he led the way. Lin Fan followed closely behind. "Going so fast?" Lu Yuer was slightly shocked. Zhao Feng knew the landscape pretty well, and he was on a rampage. Even Yanggon had to carefully travel. "You can follow me or leave by yourself." Zhao Feng didn't even care about what she thought. Lu Yuer bit her lips, and after a bit of hesitation, she decided to follow Zhao Feng. A complex map appeared in Zhao Feng's map, which slowly started to perfect itself. The reason he ran so fast was that he wanted to complete the map and exit the maze. After walking for a short time, a group of around 10 to 20 bats appeared ahead, and this amount was able to threaten the 3. Lu Yuer and Lin Fan tensed up. "Boy!" Zhao Feng opened his mouth, and the group of bats ahead screeched in fear as they fell down with talk. Some of them flew away. "Oh my God!" Lin Fan and Lu Yuer exchanged glances as stunned expressions appeared on their faces. All Zhao Feng did was open his mouth, and the bats scattered in fear. After reaching the 3rd sky of the ascended realm, the light in Zhao Feng's left eye had reached 3 yards, meaning that his mental energy was stronger. After this, Zhao Feng dominated everything in the bat cave. The bats were all countered by his mental energy sound wave. Any group that came would die or scatter in fear. Once, a group of 100 black blood bats came, led by a bat king of the fourth sky. The result: Zhao Feng activated his mental energy assassination to kill the other bats, and then he slew the bat king with his Luo Bao. Of the participants, Zhao Feng was the first to break past the human C tactic. Ignoring the human C tactic, Zhao Feng's mental energy was enormous, and he had the spiritual wine to help him recover. Only numbness was left in Lin Fan and Lu Yuer apart from shock. At this point in time, Zhao Feng was like the Lord of Darkness, and as time passed, the map inside Zhao Feng's mind became more perfected. He then finally analyzed the path that one must take to exit the maze, and this included going past the central part of the map. The third day of the second stage. A large cave entrance appeared, with it being pitch black ahead, like it was the mouth of an enormous beast. Yanggan, Quan Chun, Bei Moi, and Ran Xiaoyuan stood at the entrance with many bat bodies on the ground nearby. You guys came right on time. The headquarters of the Bat Cave is right ahead, and it has many resources which are now extinct. Yang Gan was slightly surprised when he saw Zhao Feng and company. He thought that Zhao Feng's group would find traveling through the caves extremely hard, especially when Lu Yuer and Lin Fan's cultivation was the lowest. But from the current scene, the three seemed relaxed. Lin Fan and Lu Yuer were like two guards that stood on Zhao Feng's left and right. A total of 7 disciples gathered at the massive entrance. However, to everyone's surprise, none of them had been kicked out, despite the massive increase in difficulty. The weird thing was that Zhao Feng, Lin Fan, and Lu Yuer seemed to be very relaxed. They showed no sign of fatigue, and they were instead filled with energy. Brother Zhao, you've broken through. Yang Gan felt the change in aura coming from Zhao Feng's body. Because he had broken through, his aura was wild and chaotic, and it wasn't in its usual controlled state. Feeling a pressure bear down upon them due to Zhao Feng's cultivation speed, Bei Moi and Quan Chen's expression changed slightly as they gave each other a complex look. This was especially so for Bei Moi, since the difference in cultivation between him and Zhao Feng was now basically non-existent. A surge of battle intent appeared in Bei Moi as he thought that this was a great chance to battle Zhao Feng in a fair fight. Bei Moi had absolute confidence in his own strength. He didn't even try his best in the tournament from before. I must not let him leave the floating crest palace alive. Quan Chen's expression was dim and wary. His instincts told him that if he didn't dispose of Zhao Feng soon, then the latter would become a major threat to him. There are many things in this trial which aid me in my cultivation, Zhao Feng said casually. The 7 disciples that had survived up to this point in the trial had all made improvements. It wasn't just Zhao Feng that had improved. However, the latter was the disciple who had improved the most, with Lin Fan and Bei Moi following close behind. Okay, with the 7 of us teaming up, we can enter this cave. I have a feeling that if we break through this point, then it'd be much easier for us to finish this trial. Yang Gan started to formulate a plan. Zhao Feng understood that there were thousands of bats within the Bat Cave, and that every one of them was at least at the first sky of the Ascended Realm. Bei Moi then said to everyone, according to what I found out, there is a Bat Emperor within the cave who has reached the 6th sky of the Ascended Realm. Apart from the Emperor, there are also 6 Bat Lords whose cultivation levels range from the 4th to 5th sky of the Ascended Realm. Luckily, these Bat Lords are spread out far and wide within the massive area of the Bat Cave. Hearing this, the others were all stunned. This news was found by Bei Moi, who had entered the caves with Yang Gan, with the latter catching the attention of the stronger bats. Overall, the bat's strength far exceeded the participants in terms of quantity and quality. When facing the human C tactic, even someone as strong as Yang Gan had to run, while the weaker disciples didn't even have the strength to protect themselves. We obviously can't fight them head-on. We must slay a few Bat Lords before the Bat Emperor appears. If that turns out to be successful, then we can get a few treasures on the way. If it doesn't, then all we can do is fight to the exit. The worst-case scenario is everyone going off in their own directions. Yang Gan told everyone his plan, and there were a total of 3 different possible situations that could occur. The best situation is that the group steals a few treasures on their way to the next area. The group teams up to fight a path to the exit, only choosing to protect themselves. The group falls into a desperate situation, meaning that no one would be able to help each other. After Yangon shared his plan, he sighed in his heart. According to his analysis, the probability of the first plan succeeding was lower than 10%, whereas the third plan had the highest chance of happening. This was because there were far too many bats, including the Bat Lords. Any hesitation could mean instant danger. This plan isn't bad, but what are the chances of winning against the Bat Emperor? Zhao Feng asked. The Bat Emperor's cultivation had reached the sixth sky, the same as some deacons within the clan. I don't have much of a chance of winning, but I should be able to fight it for a while, Yangon answered after thinking for a while. Zhao Feng was slightly surprised when he heard this. It seemed Yangon's strength was stronger than he imagined. After discussing for another bit, the group got ready to leave. Brother Yang, I think you forgot one possibility. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. What possibility? Yangon was extremely surprised. In his mind, the worst possible situation had already been foretold. Bloodwash. The bat nest. Zhao Feng said one word at a time to Yangon. A flash of shock appeared in his eyes before Yangon shook his head bitterly. Brother Zhao, you can stop joking. Yangon then led the group and charged towards the Bat Cave headquarters. The seven all had battle power comparable to at least the third sky of the Ascended Realm, with the majority being comparable to the fourth sky or higher. Therefore, the scattered bats that were roaming around were all easily slain. Everyone keep it up. If we meet a Bat Lord, we'll team up and kill it together, Yangon ordered. The group delved deeper and soon met a group of around 100 bats that were led by a Bat Lord, whose cultivation was close to the fifth sky of the Ascended Realm. Flipping Cloud Palm. Yangon thrust out his palm into the crowd of bats ahead, instantly killing 5 or 6 of them. In the one move just then, the Bat Lord had been injured by Yangon. Zhao Feng couldn't help but be slightly moved. Yangon was far stronger than he had expected. No wonder he was ranked in second of the core disciples, and had the ability to fight for the head disciple. Bung, so a dark azure light flashed into the Bat Lord's throat. Plop! The enormous corpse of the Bat Lord fell down to the earth. Yangon looked slightly surprised at Zhao Feng. The latter's Luoho Bao was extremely powerful, and could threaten those at the fourth sky, especially when it was a sneak attack. After the Bat Lord had been destroyed, the remaining bats scattered in fear, with over half of them dead or injured. Brother Zhao, you have some great archery skills. We can kill a few more Bat Lords together and I'll give you a higher share of the rewards we get. Yangon smiled. Sure. Zhao Feng nodded his head in agreement. However, his aim wasn't just a few resources gathered in haste, he wanted more. The group continued forward and another Bat Lord soon appeared, this time leading around 100 to 200 bats, some of which included those that had just run away. This Bat Lord had actually reached the fifth sky, and this time Yangon could only gain the upper hand without killing it in a short amount of time. Northern Dark Heavenly Water Heavy Wave Slash. Bei Moi exclaimed as he leapt into the air, leaving a few after images as he sent out a rippling palm that seemed to be 5,000 kilograms in weight towards the Bat Lord. Boom! The Bat Lord was smashed into the ground by the combined attacks of Bei Moi and Yangon. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They didn't think Bei Moi was this strong. Zhao Feng secretly analyzed that Bei Moi's Northern Dark Heavenly Water skill was on par with his own Lighting Wind palm, if not stronger. The group of 7 disciples then teamed up and slew the Bat Lord. Very successful. We've taken care of 2 already. We just need to finish off 2 more and everything will be fine. Yangon laughed. Wait. Zhao Feng's expression suddenly changed dramatically. The remaining bats aren't running away. Immediately after he said that, a soul-trembling screech could be heard as a chaotic wind appeared, rocking the walls and revealing a Bat Emperor which had a wingspan of around 3.5 meters. The nearby bats instantly screeched in response, their morale rising in the presence of their leader. Not good. We caught the attention of the Bat Emperor so quickly. Yangon took a deep breath and drew out an ancient, long golden sword as he leapt into the air. He then slashed heavily towards the Bat Emperor, ripping apart tens of bats in the process. The long golden sword was a middle-class mortal weapon, and with his cultivation, he could even threaten those at the sixth sky. The Bat Emperor screeched loudly and flew out of the way of the sword attack, effectively nullifying the damage caused on itself. So, hundreds and hundreds of bats started to gather from all directions due to the call of their emperor. Apart from the hundreds of regular bats, the other 4 bat lords also surrounded the group. They were completely surrounded. The expressions of everyone changed. The worst-case scenario that Yangon had predicted had happened. However, this was ever worse than imagined. There were also hundreds of bats who were at the ascended realm surrounding the group. The area was filled with screeching sounds, which made it difficult for everyone but Yangon to move. The untouchable sound wave was a mental energy attack which could affect their minds. Kakik. There's so many bats all packed so closely together. Zhao Feng was full of smiles. Quan Qian and company, who were engaged heavily in battle, couldn't help but stare at him in anger. How could he laugh in such a situation? Boy Zhao Feng opened his mouth and a mental energy sound wave blasted out. Talk! 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 A wave of bats fell down to the ground. Instantly, 20 to 30 bats fell onto the ground as an area void of bats appeared in front of Zhao Feng. The weird thing was that the sound attack only seemed to affect the bats, and didn't harm the nearby people. On the contrary, it seemed to partially nullify the bat's mental energy attack. Boy! 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 Zhao Feng continuously opened his mouth as bat after bat dropped from the sky, while some of them scattered in fear. This scene caused the others to be stunned. The mental energy sound attack seemed to counter these bats, and even the Bat Lord would be full of fear when it approached Zhao Feng. In reality, Zhao Feng's sound attack was changed according to the bodies of the bats and had the greatest effect on them. In terms of hearing, there was a great difference between humans and bats. Therefore, the other cultivators didn't feel anything. So, bang! Zhao Feng pulled his Luoho bow and a dark azure light flashed into a Bat Lord at the 4th sky of the Ascended Realm. The jaws of the others nearby dropped. Zhao Feng was like a bat slayer who perfectly countered bats with his archery and sound energy skills. Brother Zhao, good job. Yangon, who was fighting against the Bat Emperor, was overjoyed. Boy, boy, boy. Zhao Feng kept on opening his mouth and sending out mental energy sound attacks one after another, which were like waves that kept on killing bat after bat. In the dimension of his left eye, the azure abyss spun faster and faster, providing mental energy for Zhao Feng. In just a few tens of breaths, Zhao Feng had killed and forced around 100 to 200 bats to retreat. The bats that were forced to retreat had been mentally injured, and didn't respond to the calling of even the Bat Lords. Everyone looked towards Zhao Feng in fear and shock. The remaining 3 Bat Lords glanced warily towards Zhao Feng and didn't dare close in. Everyone cover me and will blood wash the Bat Cave. Zhao Feng's voice full of killing intent sounded out, making the others feel a surge of battle intent and excitement. Zhao Feng gave off a very strong killing intent as he continuously used his mental energy sound attack, which either caused the nearby bats to fall unconscious or fly away in fear. The strongest Bat Emperor was held back by Yangon, and their battle made the other bats and the cultivators be incapable of drawing closer. 3 of the 6 Bat Lords had been slain, and the remaining 3 didn't dare to close in on them. As for the other black bats filling the skies, none of them could come close to Zhao Feng and company. Any that did would be felled or be compelled to seek escape. This meant that the bat side's biggest advantage, the number tactic, had been resolved by Zhao Feng. Up to now, none of the remaining disciples had died or been kicked out. The situation could be said to be great. We just need to kill 2 more Bat Lords. Then we can all focus on attacking the Bat Emperor. Zhao Feng suggested. After using so much mental energy sound attacks, he was starting to get tired, taking this chance to take a sip of his spiritual wine and recover some energy. After a bit of discussion, it was decided that Bei Moi and Quan Chun would lead the offense while the others would protect Zhao Feng and support long range. Boy! Boy! Zhao Feng spat out 2 sound attacks to help Bei Moi and Quan Chun slay another Bat Lord. Even these Bat Lords would be affected by Zhao Feng's mental energy sound attack, allowing Bei Moi to seriously injure it with 1 hit. Zhao Feng would spit out sound attacks once in a while as well as pull out his Luoho bow. Soon, one of the 3 remaining Bat Lords was slain, with the other 2 being seriously injured. Zhao Feng thought that the result was set, The remaining two Bat Lords were seriously injured and not much of a threat. Right at this moment, Zhao Feng heard a screech that shook the wall, and the figure of the Bat Emperor knocked Yang Gan out of the way and charged towards him. Not good. Zhao Feng felt a life-threatening premonition of danger. The Bat Emperor was a Yao beast which had reached the sixth sky of the Ascended Realm and possessed heightened intelligence, meaning that it had already found Zhao Feng's importance. It had wanted to break through and kill the latter many times but was stopped by Yang Gan. Seeing his spawn killed one after the other, the Bat Emperor went insane and charged towards Zhao Feng even though it meant taking a direct hit from Yang Gan. "Brother Zhao, watch out!" Yang Gan exclaimed from behind. Zhao Feng might be strong, but he would be instantly killed when facing a Bat Emperor at the sixth sky of the Ascended Realm. Boy Zhao Feng took a deep breath and circulated all his true force and activated his azure blood at the same time to form a mental energy sound attack. This mental energy sound attack was produced by Zhao Feng's full strength and contained the power of his bloodline. Chio. The sound attack almost instantly hit the Bat Emperor, and even something as strong as the latter paused slightly. Zhao Feng was stunned. His mental energy sound attack was specifically designed for bats, and this attack, which could instantly kill bats of the fourth sky of the Ascended Realm, couldn't even harm the opponent. The Bat Emperor was only stopped by half a breath, but the latter only charged towards Zhao Feng with more ferocity. However, a lot of things could be done in half a breath. Zhao Feng quickly pulled back several yards as his figure twisted like a fish. Jiang. Yang Gan drew back his long golden sword and slashed it at the Bat Emperor's body, causing a long, bloody wound to appear. So, bang! Zhao Feng did a 180-degree turn, while he ran and shot out an arrow containing the power of his bloodline with his Luohu Bao. The moment he applied the power of his bloodline, Zhao Feng felt the Luohu Bao tremble slightly and give off a warm feeling. The arrow left an azure streak in the sky and reached an incredible speed. Shua! That arrow hit directly where Yang Gan had wounded the Bat Emperor. Zhao Feng understood that his attacks wouldn't be able to pierce through the Bat Emperor's defense normally, but this arrow had hit an already injured point and opened the wound up even further. Quan Chun, Bei Moi, help me. Yang Gan signaled the two to help fight back the Bat Emperor, and even though Quan Chun was extremely unwilling, he still went to support Yang Gan with his weapon in hand. If they were to fight head-on, Bei Moi and Quan Chun both could be instantly killed by the Bat Emperor. However, Yang Gan was fighting the Emperor and all the two needed to do was support. Boy! Zhao Feng snickered coldly and charged back towards the Bat Emperor as he sent out a mental energy sound attack to distract the latter. Even the Bat Emperor couldn't ignore Zhao Feng's mental energy sound attack and was forced into a desperate situation. Zhao Feng maintained some distance and released arrow after arrow, hitting the already injured place. The Bat Emperor was forced back by the group and its injuries became more and more severe. It went absolutely crazy and tried to run away but was stopped by the group with Zhao Feng firing a mental energy sound attack at critical points. After half the time it takes to brew tea, the Bat Emperor finally fell heavily onto the ground, dead. After slaying the Bat Emperor, everyone let out a long breath and the remaining bats scattered. Even if some of them wanted to take revenge, they were forced back by Zhao Feng's mental energy sound attack. As of now, there were several hundred bats dead in the cave and 75% of them were killed by Zhao Feng. Brother Zhao, you've contributed a lot. If you weren't here, who knows how many would be able to pass through alive. After the trial finishes, I'll report this to the clan. Yang Gan said with gratitude and admiration. One had to know the second trial was far harder than the first, and under normal circumstances there wouldn't be more than 3 to pass this trial. However, Zhao Feng was a game-changer who had countered the Bat's number tactic, and no one was kicked out of the trial. After killing the Bat Emperor, the group went deeper inside the cave, which had many treasures inside. Zhao Feng opened his left eye secretly and scanned the cave. He didn't take treasures easily, but they were definitely good items when he did. After walking to a certain point, a blood-red wall appeared. Great! This is the spiritual fruit, scarlet blood fruit, which can significantly strengthen the body. Quan Chun saw a fruit growing in the corner. Shua! A figure suddenly appeared before him and took the scarlet blood fruit. Brother Zhao, I found this scarlet blood fruit first, Quan Chun said dimly. If you found it first, why is it I that picked it up? Zhao Feng mocked. His left eye could see which items were around, but even then he could only pick a few from them. Stop arguing, Brother Zhao did the most work, so he should get first priority. Furthermore, there's more than one scarlet blood fruit. Yang Gan said. Quan Chun was extremely aggrieved, but there was nothing he could do except go search for other treasures. The scarlet blood fruit was a spiritual fruit containing the essence of the sun, as well as the blood of animals, which greatly increases the attributes of the body. There was a high chance of someone breaking through to the next sky if they were under the fourth sky of the ascended realm. There was 5 to 6 of these fruits around, and Zhao Feng got 2, Yanggan 1, Bei Moi 1, and Ran Xiaoyuan got the last one. Zhao Feng's eyes suddenly glanced towards a corner of a certain place. There was a faint silver-red type of fruit growing there which gave off a cold aura. Chilling Yin fruit. A spiritual fruit with exact opposite properties as the scarlet blood fruit. Zhao Feng's figure turned into a blur as he rushed towards that direction, but Yang Gan, Bei Moi, and company had also found the chilling Yin fruit at the same time. 2 of the 5 chilling Yin fruit were snatched by Zhao Feng, while the other 3 were split by Yang Gan, Bei Moi, and Lin Fan. The latter was always close to Zhao Feng, therefore he also received some of the light. Lin Fan found a certain pattern. As long as Zhao Feng went for something, good treasures would appear. However, it wasn't just him who realized this. Yang Gan and company all had the same feeling. Why are you all following me? Zhao Feng said out of nowhere. The others laughed awkwardly and maintained a certain distance from Zhao Feng. After this, Zhao Feng didn't take many items and would only consider doing so if they had reached the spiritual grade, since he knew the others would be suspicious and greedy if he took too much. There were many treasures within the cave, but only 1/10 of them had reached the spiritual grade. Once since they were at that level, they would contain a lot of energy within them. Zhao Feng roughly calculated that of the tens of spiritual grade plants he got, the chilling Yin fruit and scarlet blood fruit were worth the most, and that the others had a better effect when created into pills instead of being eaten straight away. Around half a day later, the items inside the bat cave were pillaged. There were a few people who immediately ate their treasures to consolidate and increase their cultivation. For example, Bei Moi, the chilling Yin fruit he ate had the same elements as his northern dark heavenly water, which meant this could increase his cultivation. Zhao Feng didn't really mind which elements the fruits had, since the skill he trained in could absorb both. But because he had just had a breakthrough, it wasn't a wise choice to use treasures to increase his cultivation right now. Lin Fan ate a chilling Yin fruit and sat cross-legged on the ground, cultivating. 2 hours later, Yang Gan was the first to leave. He wanted to be the first to exit the second trial so he could gain more rewards from this trial. The others then left one after another, but Zhao Feng and Lin Fan still headed off together. After eating the chilling Yin fruit, Lin Fan was closing in on the peak second sky of the ascended realm, and his true force had the element of ice in it, which greatly increased his power. The others, such as Quan Chen, Ran Xiaoyuan, and Lu Yuer, all had improvements as well. The point of the trial was to squeeze out one's potential and then use resources to increase one's cultivation. Brother Zhao, why aren't you fighting for the title of the first to exit? Lin Fan suddenly asked. When the second trial had begun, it was already mentioned that the less time one took to complete the trial, the higher the reward. I'm not fighting for this. Zhao Feng shook his head. Then, Brother Zhao, you. The rules mentioned that the performance in the trial, as well as the number of trials passed, will affect the result. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. The number of trials passed as well as the performance from them. Performance. Lin Fan's eyes lit up as he finally understood. The longer one stayed in the floating crest trial, the better they scored. In addition, the number of trials one passed, as well as their performance during the trials, also affected the final result, in turn which decided the final reward. Apart from Lu Hu and the other 2 disciples who had been kicked out in the first trial, the remaining 7 had gotten at least 30 trial points for successfully passing the first trial, and the disciples that had reached this point had also done well during the trials. Of course, the points gained from their performance was concealed. Every participating disciple had a floating crest token embedded inside their bodies, and even Zhao Feng couldn't feel the existence of the token. However, when he killed his enemies, his left eye was able to catch a glimpse of the slightest movement of the token. While he may not have known how many points he had, his score shouldn't have been too low after killing so many bats. Zhao Feng then traveled slowly around, the map within his mind becoming clearer and clearer. Although there were still a few remaining black spots in the map, the path to the exit had already been found. It's already been 3 days since the start of the second trial. Zhao Feng knew that he couldn't waste any more time, even though there were still some treasures in the cave. His luck wasn't very good anyways, since he hadn't found any good items apart from inside the bat nest. Only Bei Moi and Yang Gan had gotten a few spiritual items after entering an underground floor. 2 hours later, a faint wisp of light appeared from ahead and the material under their feet slowly turned azure in color. The faint wisp of light became brighter and brighter until Zhao Feng saw the exit, a big, azure gate that was wide open. After passing through the gate, a voice echoed about in his head. 50 points are awarded for passing the second trial. After 5 days are up, the third trial shall open. Within the gate was an azure hall containing energy several times stronger than the energy on Sky Moon Mountain. There were already 3 people inside, Yang Gan, Quan Chan, and Bei Moi. The 3 sat cross-legged on the ground, digesting the plants they had gotten before. Bei Moi had the fastest improvement of the 3, with his aura pushing towards the 4th sky of the ascended realm. Yang Gan was also progressing forward. However, the further one cultivated, the harder it was to progress. At his level, every inch gained in cultivation required tons of effort. Despite all this, Yang Gan had still reached the late stages of the 5th sky, and after the trial he even had the chance to try and reach the 6th sky. Another half of a day later, Lu Yuer and Ran Xiaoyun both walked through the gate and into the hall. According to what Zhao Feng knew, the ones that arrived later didn't get any extra bonuses. The second trial. Yang Gan was the fastest and therefore got an extra 30 points. Bei Moi and Quan Chin both received an extra 20. One had to know the points for passing the first trial gave only 30 points. It wasn't easy to get these points, and after the trials ended they had many uses. Time passed by slowly, and everyone used the last bit of time to increase their strength. Zhao Feng, Bei Moi, Ran Xiaoyun, and Lin Fan all made major improvements in their cultivation. This was especially so for Zhao Feng, who had already broken through before the second trial had even ended. Apart from that, both Ran Xiaoyun and Lin Fan were both at the point of a breakthrough as well. Finally, a voice sounded in their head. The floating crest trial shall enter the 3rd stage, Sky Boundary Island. There are many rewards here and no time limit. The longer one survives, the better they score. This is the last stage of the trial. After 10 days have passed, black metal monsters at the true spirit realm shall come and try to kill you. The longer one survives their pursuit, the more difficult the pursuit shall become. As the voice faded away, a sparkling azure door opened on the other side of the hall. Zhao Feng instinctively opened his left eye, his expression instantly turning weird. He knew a few things about arrays, and using left eye, he could tell the type of array he was looking at. We can't be together for the last stage. It's all up to you now. Zhao Feng said to Lin Fan, and the latter said gratefully, I could only reach this far thanks to Brother Zhao. I'll try my best for the last stage. Zhao Feng nodded his head and felt that Lin Fan already had achieved the requirements to reach the 3rd sky of the ascended realm. If he was able to break through during this stage, he should be able to get a good score. Shwa! 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 The 7 disciples vanished one after another as they entered the sparkling door. Sky Boundary Island, the last stage. Lin Fan's body descended into a canyon and felt the energy around him was pure and full. The energy here is so pure that one's cultivation speed would be 10 times as fast as the Sky Moon Mountain. Lin Fan was stunned. After that, he then surveyed the area, but there was no one in sight. Brother Zhao is too mysterious and smart. Everyone WH9 entered the 3rd stage were sent to different corners in the Sky Boundary Island. Lin Fan took in a deep breath and admired Zhao Feng even more. The latter had already seen something before they even entered. Zhao Feng saw that the array within the sparkling door was a teleportation array, one of the most complicated arrays. One needed to know about spatial laws and have a corresponding array diagram to set it up. Lin Fan lifted up his head and found that the occasional figure of a Yao beast would fly by. Yao beasts could cultivate and contained a thin trace of ancient bloodlines in them. It was said that the black metal monsters would only pursue them after 10 days, but there was already a lot of danger here. The energy here is perfect for me to break through. Lin Fan decided and went to find a concealed place. It was best for him to reach the third sky first, and this place for perfect for it. Tens and tens of miles away in front of a garden. My luck is indeed great. I was teleported to an ancient forgotten garden. Bei Moi stood in front of a garden and felt the thick energy around as well as the auras of powerful beings nearby. These auras within the ancient forgotten garden shook his heart even though it was just a tinge. This also meant that the garden was real and contained many treasures inside. Of course, treasures and danger lurked together. Bei Moi obviously knew this point, and he took a deep breath and stepped into the garden. If I don't go early, this garden will be found by the others. Bei Moi's figure vanished as he stepped inside. He didn't know that the Sky Boundary Island was huge and that there were many places containing treasures around. The others might not have the time to fight him. But compared to some, his luck was extremely good since he had met an ancient garden already. The 7 disciples were sent to the corners of the Sky Boundary Island. Lin Fan's luck was average and Bei Moi's was extremely good. There were some with bad luck though. For example, Yangon. He was teleported right next to a group of green-spotted hyenas who were all at the second sky of the Ascended Realm or higher. After a hard-fought battle, Yangon was able to escape. I was almost held back by that green hyena king, and if I was surrounded. Yangon sighed in relief. The green hyena king's cultivation had almost reached the 7th sky of the Ascended Realm, even stronger than the Bat Emperor. After running for a while, Yangon's figure suddenly stopped as he looked at a tower 100 feet tall in the middle of the forest. This tall tower is definitely not simple, but Yangon was half filled with joy and half filled with sadness because the tower was in the middle of the forest where beasts howled from and some of the auras inside threatened him. He wasn't as lucky as Bei Moi, who had appeared right next to an ancient forgotten garden. At the same time, the disciples in the Sky Boundary Island had all met something either good or bad. On top of a mountain a few thousand meters high stood a youth. This youth had azure hair and only one eye, which gave off a wicked feeling. I finally got up here. The area of the last stage is indeed massive. I can't even see the end with my left eye, meaning that the radius of this place is at least 400 to 500 miles long. Zhao Feng murmured to himself. He was suspicious that this wasn't in the Sky Moon Mountain nor the Cloud Country. This puzzle couldn't be solved by him at the moment. Even the elders of the clan probably couldn't give a correct and definite answer. After all, the Floating Crest Palace came from the ancient times, and in that era there were many people at the Origin Core and Void God Realm who had the ability to pass through dimensions and rebirth from a drop of blood. The same as true gods. Of course, nothing touched that level in this place apart from the 4 great inheritances, of which the Scarlet Moon inheritance was one of them. It had been many hours since Zhao Feng had entered the Sky Boundary Island, and the second he entered he had opened his left eye to find a few places with treasure. This way he had the choice to choose which place to go to. Therefore Zhao Feng spent a lot of energy climbing to the peak of the mountain for a better and further view. Standing at the summit, Zhao Feng could see very, very far with his left eye since nothing was in his way, including the minuscule things 100 miles away. There was a tall tower in the middle of the forest in the straight north direction. He estimated that there would be great rewards, but many Yao beasts were lurking there, including those at the 7th sky of the Ascended Realm and even those at the True Spirit Realm. In the northwest direction was a mysterious garden which was surrounded by water. That side is probably an ancient forgotten garden. Zhao Feng's heart sped up a bit. From the scenery and aura, the garden had one could imagine the treasures inside, but unfortunately the garden was in the middle of a lake and had many beasts there, which made it even more dangerous than the tall tower. Furthermore, the journey to the garden would take a long time, excluding the fact that there would be danger on the way as well. Zhao Feng shook his head as a faint azure light appeared from his left eye as he scanned around. The entrance of the Floating Crest Palace. The 4 elders and the clan master sat cross-legged in silence. In the blink of an eye, 8 days had passed and the first and second stage of the trial had ended. On this day, First Elder opened his eyes and said slowly, According to previous experience, many people are kicked out during the 5th and 6th day. The 5th and 6th days were the middle stages of the trial, and many would be kicked out or even die. But this time 8 days had passed and no one had exited. It's indeed weird. Seeing how hard the first stage was, the second and third stages should be much harder and dangerous than the previous trials. Granny Lu Yu looked slightly worried. Her disciple Lu Yuer was one of the weaker ones that participated. There's only 2 possibilities. Hai Yun Master, dressed in pure white, suddenly said. What possibilities? The others all looked towards the youngest and most talented elder of the Broken Moon clan. The latter had achieved the best score in the Floating Crest trial in the past few decades. His record hadn't been broken since, therefore his words held great importance. The first possibility is that there is an extremely high death rate. Sometimes the trial itself can't even control some of the things inside. Therefore, we haven't seen any disciples out yet. Hai Yun Master said in a low tone. The expressions on the faces of the others changed slightly as they became somewhat worried. Yes, this trial's difficulty was hard. This could be seen from the first stage when a black metal monster at the true spirit realm had chased them. The second possibility is that there was a very high passing rate, and therefore no one has died nor been kicked out. Hai Yun Master shook his head and sighed as he stated the second possibility. The people present here all knew that the probability of the second possibility was low. No one dead or kicked out. This meant that there was a 100% pass rate. Was this possible? Something like this had almost never happened before. Hopefully it's the second possibility, because if it is, it shall be the rising of the Broken Moon clan. The clan master sighed heavily. The 5 at the true spirit realm probably wouldn't have imagined that the slightest tremble from a butterfly could ignite a chaotic tornado, especially when it was just a small trial. Floating Crest Trial, Sky Boundary Island. The azure hair of the youth who stood on the top of the mountain wavered. His azure eye spun around as if it had the power to see through the world. An hour had passed and Zhaofeng had analyzed the situations in a 100-mile radius. Slowly but surely, a map appeared in his mind. The mental map not only contained the rivers, mountains, and forests, but it also had certain tags to it. These tags were attached onto places where there could be treasure or danger. For example, a tag said that there was a 3-headed scorching lion there, which was a Yao King at the true spirit realm. What kind of bullshit luck does Bei Moi have? He was probably sent straight inside or to the entrance of the garden. Zhao Feng's lips twitched, but he had to admit luck was also a type of strength. Legendary figures always had good luck. For example, the Scarlet Moon Patriarch had once entered the Scarlet Moon Inheritance Ground. Apart from Bei Moi, Zhaofeng also saw Yanggan's figure. The latter was aiming for the tall tower within the dangerous forest. The forest was full of beasts, including Yao Beast Kings at the true spirit realm, and Zhaofeng couldn't help but sweat for him. Luckily, Yanggan's luck didn't seem too bad as he didn't enter the territory of the Yao Beast King. 2 good places had been taken by Bei Moi and Yanggan. That ancient forgotten garden was probably the best place within a 100-mile radius, and the tall tower was second. Zhaofeng even had the urge to fight Bei Moi for it, but after thinking about it carefully, he didn't do it. Firstly, Bei Moi was strong and had the advantage of entering first. Zhaofeng had to travel through many dangerous places which were even more deadlier than the forest of the tall tower. Secondly, Zhaofeng thought that he should be generous and set his sights higher and further. Thinking up to here, a smile appeared on his lips as an extreme idea popped up. There's 10 days of safety in the 3rd stage. I won't find any treasures at first, so instead I should scout out the Sky Boundary Island. Zhaofeng thought it through. The other disciples would use this time to get inheritances and treasures. Furthermore, the disciples would have to face the pursuit of black metal monsters of the true spirit realm after 10 days. One obviously knew that it wouldn't as simple as the first stage. Zhao Feng's mind worked differently from others. Although he had found a lot of places where there were treasures, he didn't immediately go to them. I'll create a map of the Sky Boundary Island with the places with treasure located in it. A look of insanity appeared in Zhao Feng's eyes. He needed to use the full power of his left eye to control all of this. Tang! Zhao Feng turned into a blur as he went down the mountain. Half a day later, Zhao Feng had scouted areas further away. He wanted to see how big this sky boundary island actually was. On the way, Zhao Feng's left eye surveyed the nearby area and would always find the dangers lurking there. Most of the times he would decide to go around, but at other times he would smash straight through to save time. It was lucky he had learnt the mental energy sound attack because it could scatter weaker beast hordes. Every 100 miles or so, Zhao Feng would find a high place and remember the landscape below. Even though Zhao Feng had his left eye, he also met danger. There were unique Yao beasts whose forte was stealth or areas which were dangerous. For example, Zhao Feng was walking on a patch of grass but, due to carelessness, was ambushed by some vines. Luckily, his reaction speed was fast and was able to escape by using his bloodline power. Ever since that event, Zhao Feng was extremely careful. There was another, even more terrifying time. Zhao Feng was once standing on a hill, and only after scanning the hill with his left eye did he realize it was actually a stone monster sleeping. The stone monster was as big as a ship and more than 10 times bigger than the black metal monster from the first stage. Zhao Feng's bloodline power shook as it felt the aura of the stone monster below. He was certain that the stone monster could instantly kill those at the true spirit realm with one hit were it awake. This was only a part of the hidden dangers. Zhao Feng found different sorts of queer stuff as he carried on. What was the ancient era like to have such terrifying existences? Yao beasts, hills, plants. Everything could be something else. Zhao Feng took in a deep breath. Using a day and a half, Zhao Feng came to the end of the sky boundary island. At the end of the sky boundary island was a limitless, vast ocean. Zhao Feng roughly scanned the waters and found that the number of beasts in the ocean was 10 times or even 100 times greater than the beasts in the island. Furthermore, these beasts were even stronger. If he went into the ocean, even his left eye might not guarantee his survival. Zhao Feng calculated that from the starting point to the end of the sky boundary island, he had walked around 200 to 300 miles. Returning the way he came, Zhao Feng's pace was much faster since he was familiar with the route. After arriving back at the mountain peak, Zhao Feng then proceeded in the other 3 directions. A few days later, Zhao Feng returned to the starting point, exhausted. Using a total of 4 to 5 days, Zhao Feng had scouted the entire sky boundary island. Now he knew the landscape of the island as familiarly as he knew his palm. He knew which places had danger, which places had treasure, even which places had Yao beasts. There's a total of 139 places where there might be treasure. Amongst them there's 4 to 5 places where there's treasure on par with the garden. But all of them are extremely dangerous. Zhao Feng murmured. Obviously the danger was everywhere. There was a total of 200 or so places where Zhao Feng wouldn't be able to return from. There were around 40 to 50 existences which could kill him instantly, and this was only the number found so far. In a total of 5 days, Zhao Feng had found many places with treasure, but didn't regret not going inside. There's still 5 days till monsters of the true spirit realm come chasing after me. Zhao Feng took a deep breath. Every step he took from now on was critical. So, Zhao Feng's figure leapt into the air, and he went towards the outer edges of the Tall Tower Forest. The Tall Tower Forest was where Yanggan was, and according to what Zhao Feng knew, the former had entered the mysterious tower by luck. Or maybe he had a hidden card that no one knew of. Zhao Feng's aim obviously wasn't the tall tower. There was a river near the Tall Tower Forest that went through almost half the sky boundary island. The water in the river was chilling, and there was no presence or auras of any beasts nearby it. All in all, this river was very weird. Zhao Feng had once seen a queer scene. The blue river moved like a dragon and slithered like a snake. Adding on the fact that there weren't any traces of beasts nearby, Zhao Feng decided to scout this place out. I'll name this place the Dragon Snake Ice River. Zhao Feng named it by how it seemed to move. He walked next to the Dragon Snake Ice River and opened his left eye. After coming close to the river, he felt a terrifying coldness, and the deeper the river got, the stronger the icy feeling. On the way, there seemed to be nothing, but Zhao Feng's instinct told him that this Dragon Snake Ice River wasn't simple and must have a mysterious history to it. After walking to the end of the river at the mouth of the Dragon and Snake, there was a waterfall with a freezing pond below the waterfall. The freezing pond wasn't big, around 10 yards or so wide, but it gave off a coldness that made one's soul tremble. Looks like it's here. Zhao Feng stood in front of the pond. Suddenly, a weird freezing feeling entered through his legs and spread out throughout his body. Wang! The azure light in his left eye spun around and a faint azure-colored blood within him boiled, dissipating the cold. Zhao Feng's expression became solemn. What kind of power did the pond have to make his left eye and bloodline power automatically trigger their defensive measures? He was certain that even existences at the fifth or sixth sky of the ascended realm would feel uneasy before this cold. This should be the origin. Zhao Feng had a feeling that the secret of the Dragon Snake Ice River was here because he had scanned the other areas with his left eye and found no result. Zhao Feng's left eye could only see through 3 yards of the freezing pond. If it had been a normal river, he could have seen 10 yards into it, but the water in this area was extremely unique and unbelievably cold. In other words, he couldn't see the bottom of the river with his left eye. Is it worth it to find the secret of the Dragon Snake Ice River? I'll have to enter the pond to see. Zhao Feng's thoughts turned. If it was any other disciple here, they wouldn't have tried because the chill within the freezing pond would even freeze beings at the ascended realm into ice blocks. My silver wall technique has reached the highest level and has strong resistance against the cold. Apart from that, my bloodline power also seems to resist the cold as well. Zhao Feng thought for a while and then clenched his teeth as he decided to gamble. Instinct told him that this Dragon Snake Ice River was very mysterious, and his left eye was attracted to the ancient aura inside. Furthermore, he had many advantages which gave him a high chance of being able to retreat unharmed. Plop! Zhao Feng's figure was like a fish as he leapt into the pond. The next instant, a bone-chilling coldness enveloped his entire body. If it was someone else with the same cultivation as him, they would instantly be frozen numb and would die quickly if they didn't return to the surface. However, Zhao Feng had trained in the silver wall technique which had strengthened his body. In an instant, he had circulated his true force to form a silver layer of light around his body. Zhao Feng fully opened his left eye and sank deeper. 1 yard. 2 yards. 3 yards. Zhao Feng couldn't stand it anymore at 3 yards. But luckily the azure blood within his body began to boil, and a warm feeling suffused his body. The power of the bloodline had stronger resistance than even the silver wall technique. 4 yards. 5 yards. 6 yards. The deeper he went, the more terrifying the coldness became. Within the coldness was also a power which threatened to erode his soul and consciousness. But luckily, the light within his left eye rotated quickly and resisted the soul attack. Even someone as strong as Yang Gan would be stopped at 3 yards, but Zhao Feng had already reached 6 yards, which was almost his limit. He clenched his teeth and continued onward. 6 yards. 7 yards. 8 yards. That was it. Zhao Feng felt his body freeze and was almost rendered unable to return back to the surface. Rise! Zhao Feng exclaimed in his heart as his bloodline power and true force started to burn. Voila! Zhao Feng began to move like a fish and swam back to the top. So close. Zhao Feng sighed out in relief. Obviously it wasn't like he didn't gain anything. Before Zhao Feng swam up, he saw a mysterious, transparent blue tear-shaped crystal, the size of a watermelon. What's the history of this blue crystal? Zhao Feng felt cold just by glancing at it. Luckily, it was with his left eye. Had it been a normal eye, the coldness would have frozen his body immediately. Instinct told Zhao Feng that this item wasn't something he could touch nor have. This thing was even more troublesome than ordinary spiritual-grade weapons. However, Zhao Feng was unwilling to let this go without inspecting it further. The second time, he first ate a scarlet blood fruit because it contained pure yang energy. After swallowing it, Zhao Feng felt as if a fire was burning in his heart, which also ignited his bloodline power and true force at the same time. He had used 1 scarlet blood fruit as the price to fight the cold within the freezing pond. Plop! Entering once again, Zhao Feng was easily able to reach 8 yards. His entire body was ablaze due to the scarlet blood fruit. At 8 yards, there were only 3 yards left to the transparent blue crystal. The blue crystal was like an ice lotus, beautiful and eye-catching, but when looked at, it gave its beholder a chilly feeling. Zhao Feng could only use his left eye to inspect and admire it. 8 yards. 9 yards. Zhao Feng felt the coldness increase with every step he took. He was almost at 10 yards, just 1 yard and a bit away from the blue crystal. At this moment, Zhao Feng would be frozen solid if he took one more step. Inspecting it under such a close distance, Zhao Feng found that the crystal wasn't exactly a solid, because its surface slightly rippled, like a teardrop. So unfortunate. Is there really no way? Zhao Feng knew that, unless he wanted to die, there was no chance. Voila! His figure swam up, and as he did so, a plan formed. He took out a thin silver silk string. This silver string was extremely thin, forged from chilling metal that gave it properties of ice, and was a half-mortal grade weapon material. Zhao Feng took out his luoho bow, and then wrapped one side of the string around the bow while wrapping the other side on a dark azure arrow. This way the arrow shot out could be taken back. Hee, I'll try it out. Zhao Feng laughed lightly. Since the blue crystal tear wasn't exactly a solid, this was his only option. He then circulated his true force and fired his arrow towards the blue crystal tear. To make sure no accidents happened, Zhao Feng held back on retreating until he felt the arrow hit its mark. Shwa! The dark azure arrow contained the power of his bloodline and true force, and shot towards the blue crystal tear with half the speed of sound. However, the arrow gradually lost speed and eventually turned into an ice arrow before barely managing to touch the ripples surrounding the blue crystal. These ripples were actually part of the blue crystal tear as well. Boiwu! A queer noise sounded from the bottom of the freezing pond, a sound which went straight through his soul. Zhao Feng hiccuped and quickly swam up as he felt a sense of life-threatening danger. At the same time, a terrifying coldness exuded from the luoho bow. Not good. Zhao Feng felt his body turn numb and immediately threw the luoho bow away into the air. Sang. His body leapt several yards into the air and started to run on the air. Only when he was a few hundred yards away did he land back down onto the ground. But even though Zhao Feng was several hundred yards away from the freezing pond, he could still feel the terrifying coldness inside a tall tower in the nearby forest. What the hell is going on? Why did it suddenly become so cold? Yang Gan was at the 9th floor of the tower but still felt a chilling intent. He wasn't the only one affected. Bei Moi and the other disciples all felt this cold. With the Dragon Snake Ice River as the core, a chill spread across the sky boundary island, causing the temperature to drop dramatically. In just a few breaths of time, the temperature of the sky boundary island had gone down by tens of degrees and kept dropping for the next 10 breaths. At the rate the temperature was dropping by, the entire sky boundary island might become an island of ice. In front of the freezing pond. Fuck! Zhao Feng felt as if his limbs had turned into ice. He was the person who did this and was also closest to the pond, meaning that the cold he faced was the strongest, but luckily, the chilling intent only exploded for an instant before calming down. Zhao Feng's eyesight never moved away from the freezing pond, and his luoho bow fell down from the air still carrying a silver silk string that had now turned blue, while the arrow on the other side had broken into pieces and was now replaced by a blue ripple. This blue ripple was a part of the blue crystal tear from the freezing pond. The power of the blue ripple extended to the luoho bow through the string, which didn't break into pieces as it already had the properties of ice to it. After several breaths, the blue ripple disappeared into the luoho bow and formed a weird symbol on it. The symbol was like an ice lotus that had bloomed. Hula! The silver string broke into pieces. Zhao Feng jumped up in fright but found that the luoho bow wasn't damaged. It was a middle-grade mortal weapon after all, and was equal to a high-grade weapon when used with its arrows. The luoho bow lay on the ground, unmoving. After feeling the coldness dissipate, Zhao Feng quietly walked over to the luoho bow. Touching it carefully with his hand, he felt a bone-chilling intent radiate from the bow, but it only spun around the bow and didn't enter his body. At least the bow's not broken. Zhao Feng let out a long breath as he carefully inspected the luoho bow, and found that apart from the bow being changed somehow by the power of the blue crystal tear, nothing had changed. The power of the blue crystal tear was terrifying, as just a bit of its power had caused the temperature of the sky boundary island to drop by tens of degrees. He took out an arrow from his quiver, but his expression suddenly changed. All the arrows inside his quiver had turned faint blue, as if they had been changed by the cold when he had entered the freezing pond. So, bang! Zhao Feng pulled back his luoho bow and fired an arrow at a big tree. Pang! The arrow pierced into the tree but didn't go through. Every flower and tree of the sky boundary island was not simple, and if it was a tree of the outside world, it would definitely leave a gaping hole. There doesn't seem to be any change in power? Zhao Feng was slightly disappointed. Could it be that his instinct was wrong? The arrow had not increased in strength. On the contrary, it shattered into pieces after it hit its target, meaning that the material had been changed due to taking in too much ice attribute. However, the next instant, a layer of ice which became thicker and thicker formed on the tree that had been shot through. In just 1 to 2 breaths of time, the 10-meter-high tree had been covered in ice and was like an ice statue, breathtaking in the sunlight. Sealed in ice. Zhao Feng took in a cold breath, stunned. Zhao Feng took in a cold breath. He hadn't expected for the luoho bow to transform in such a way. Its power hadn't increased, but the true change was the imbuement of elemental properties. An ice lotus symbol appeared on the luoho bow, while the arrows within the quiver acquired a slightly blue hue. A part of the power from the crystal had entered the bow by transmitting through the string, and the arrows had been close to the crystal ripples, absorbing a bit of energy from it. But from the arrow just then, one could see that it was an one-time use item. Zhao Feng thought deeply for a moment before he picked up a stick off the ground and shot it out from the luoho bow. So, the stick struck its target cleanly but disintegrated inch by inch, casting a layer of ice over the target without fully sealing it in ice. It looks like only changed arrows can use the power of ice to its greatest. Zhao Feng thought in his heart. This meant that the remaining tens of arrows were precious items since they could seal the target in ice, and from the power exhibited just then, anyone under the 4th sky of the Ascended Realm would be fully sealed if hit. Those at the 4th and 5th sky wouldn't be able to escape in a short amount of time, but they still had a high chance of staying alive if they were willing to pay a price. Although someone at the 6th sky of the Ascended Realm wouldn't be ice-sealed, their movement would be affected. The effect of this was insane. The only regrettable thing was that these blue arrows were of one-time use. Zhao Feng concluded that if these arrows were taken back into the outside world, they would shatter due to the change in temperature. The coldness radiating from the freezing pond continued. Zhao Feng stood nearby and his body shivered since his bloodline power had a limit, and the duration of his scarlet blood fruits effect was coming to an end. Go! Zhao Feng glanced unwillingly at the freezing pond, but logic told him that this was not his treasure to be had. This was similar to the blood moon devouring spirit sword. He couldn't control it. Zhao Feng needed to reach the true spirit realm to get the mysterious crystal tear, and this was him with the power of his bloodline. Others at the true spirit realm might not succeed. Thinking about it, Zhao Feng thought that his rewards weren't that bad. The luoho bow had been changed by the crystal and its power rose half a level. The one-time use arrows gave Zhao Feng some hidden cards, and the latter also felt that his body had stronger resistance against the cold. After leaving the freezing pond, Zhao Feng headed towards the southeast direction. On the way, the temperature kept dropping. It was obvious that the mysterious crystal tear was a forbidden item in the sky boundary island, and Zhao Feng had accidentally touched it, which changed the temperature of the entire island. Under the sudden drop in temperature, the Yao beasts returned to their caves while the weaker ones instantly died. Only the strong Yao beasts weren't affected. This had lowered the 3rd stage's difficulty since the probability of being attacked by a beast horde dropped dramatically. Zhao Feng didn't know that this action had once again affected the entire Floating Crest trial. 3 hours later, a canyon appeared in sight. A few hours earlier it might have still looked like a canyon, but now it was an ice gorge. In Zhao Feng's mind map, there were a few groups of beasts around here, but because of the temperature change, many of them had retreated back to their caves, which made Zhao Feng's journey easier. This canyon had been covered by a large, powerful illusion array, meaning that there should be something wrong here. In terms of size, this place was as big as the ancient Forgotten Garden, but it was hidden on the contrary. Zhao Feng didn't know what was inside the canyon. It could spell luck or disaster. No one knew. There should be some sort of secret here since it's hidden by an illusion array. Zhao Feng flew down from the top and looked downwards. From his angle, the canyon looked like a black abyss filled with clouds. Faint noise and aura emerged from the clouds, with some arbitrary auras even stronger than the true spirit realm cropped up. But being an array master, Zhao Feng had almost full resistance against mental energy illusions and, through his left eye, could see fluctuations of array power. Zhao Feng wasn't able to see through the entire array even when he used his full power. All he saw was the landscape of the canyon. There wasn't any black abyss nor terrifying Yao Beast King. Sang. Zhao Feng's body leapt into the air and floated towards the canyon, while ignoring the power of the illusion array. When he landed, he felt as if he was falling into an abyss, as if a monster had opened its mouth and gulped him up. However, he knew this was the array at work. This was, after all, an ancient place. Even though he had the mysterious left eye, it didn't mean he was unstoppable. After leaping into the air a few times, he landed gracefully near a village. There were old and young, men and women wearing very simple clothes, and the structures seemed old. Spicy smelly tofu, 2 pieces for a penny. Sweet iced shaw, a penny for 1. Everywhere, a racket of chaotic noise was present. Zhao Feng had a queer feeling as he stood in the middle of this market. It was as if this place had nothing to do with the Floating Crest trial, but he didn't think that this place would be so innocuous. It seems real, but everything here is still the power of the array. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. The power of the illusion array was immense and extremely real. Even Zhao Feng's left eye couldn't fully see through it. He couldn't imagine how an array could create such a big place so specifically. There were people selling vegetables, showing tricks, and even gangsters. Everything just seemed so real, and if it wasn't because Zhao Feng had his mysterious left eye, he wouldn't realize that this was all fake. At the same time, some additional thoughts chugged in Zhao Feng's mind. What was the purpose of this market? What's it for? First Elder had talked about the trial before and told him that not everything was awarded through killing. Truthfully, righteous inheritances usually tested one's heart and will. One had to meet the requirements to get the treasures. Normal participants wouldn't be able to realize this is fake. Therefore, I should treat this place as real. A thought appeared in Zhao Feng's mind. He tried to gather information from the market but realized that there was just far too much. Therefore, Zhao Feng decided to roam around the village casually until he heard the angry voice of a youth at a certain point. "You bastards, let go of my mum." That voice was extremely clear in Zhao Feng's mind, different from the other chaotic voices. Even if Zhao Feng didn't have his left eye, he would be able to the difference. Is the illusion purposely allowing the participants to hear this? A smirk appeared on Zhao Feng's face. Turning to the side, he saw an old store selling buns and a pretty woman who was being pulled away by 3 gangsters. "Let go of my mum." A youth wearing tattered clothes fought with one of them. Pong! The youth was slapped away by one of the gangsters and blood streaked from his lips. "Humph! Your old man gambled and lost, owing 3,000 silver. The store covers for 1,000 and your pretty mother can go to the Yihong brothel to work off the debt. Money is earned much faster there." One of the gangsters laughed. Looking up to hear, Zhao Feng knew what had happened. Even in reality, he would interfere without hesitation. Furthermore, there was a high chance that this was part of the trial. The most important thing was that this was a righteous inheritance test, and helping the weak while getting rid of the wicked was a must. "The 3 of you can fuck off." Zhao Feng charged forwards and sent one of the gangster flying. The other 2 exclaimed in anger and charged at him from his left and right. Zhao Feng's cultivation was worked up 1 step at a time, and even if he didn't use his true force, he could easily beat 2 gangsters. The 3 gangsters were all sent flying by a kick respectively and wouldn't be able to get up in a short amount of time. "Thank you so much." The pretty woman and youth were all extremely grateful. But Zhao Feng could still see the woman was worried. "Little brother, what's your name?" Zhao Feng asked. "My name is Li Luan." "Big brother, you were so awesome just then." The youth said in admiration. Li Luan. Floating crest trial. Zhao Feng murmured and became lost in thought as he looked at this youth. To confirm his guesses, Zhao Feng decided to be a good person to the end and settled all the problems of Li Luan's family. The gangsters in the village were beaten into submission by Zhao Feng, and the latter also wrote a few martial arts from core-level techniques to high-level techniques for Li Luan. However, after doing all this, Zhao Feng still didn't get anything. He sighed in his heart. Could it be that the reward wasn't destined to be with him? Zhao Feng always felt that this village wasn't as simple as it looked, but his time was limited, so he decided to leave after one more day. He knew where the places with treasures were at. He didn't have to stubbornly stay at this one. On the second day, Zhao Feng said goodbye to Li Luan and his family. Brother Zhao, thanks for all your help. This is my beloved, small knife, and now I'm giving it to you. Li Luan handed over one item. Zhao Feng's eyes lit up, but that supposedly small knife was only an old, tattered piece of metal with a green lightning-shaped carving on it. Taking the small piece of metal, Zhao Feng instantly felt a calm aura envelop him. After merging his consciousness inside, he caught glimpse of a scenery where green lightning flashed in the air and demolished an entire mountain in one hit. At the same time, a piece of information appeared in his mind. Floating crest lightning seal. Floating crest lightning seal. Zhao Feng kept fondling this tattered piece of metal after he left the village. In terms of material, this metal was very average, but it contained an unbelievable amount of intent inside. This intent was short but so profound that it had exceeded Zhao Feng's level. I can only comprehend the slightest edges of this floating crest lightning seal, and this is because I've learnt lightning wind palm. Zhao Feng's thoughts turned. After merging with the mysterious left eye, his comprehension was terrifying, much stronger than many geniuses. However, even though he had the lightning wind palm as basis, he could only understand the slightest bit of the floating crest lightning seal. Furthermore, he felt that the aura of the floating crest lightning seal was similar to the lightning wind palm, although the former was more than 100 times stronger than the latter. Lightning wind palm only used wind to gather lightning, whereas the floating crest lightning seal controlled lightning straight away. What was the connection between the two? Zhao Feng remembered that the lightning wind palm was an ancient skill that was incomplete. At the same time, there were powerful techniques in the clan which allowed the cultivator to dominate those at their cultivation level. Some of these skills were obtained from the floating crest palace. For example, Bei Mua's northern dark heavenly water. This was obtained by Hai Yun Master from the floating crest palace. It looks like this floating crest lightning seal isn't awarded just because of my performance within the village. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. The floating crest lightning seal seemed to have the same origins as the lightning wind palm. He opened his left eye and copied the scenery of the lightning seal into his mind, but the power of the scene was too strong. He had to use all his mental energy before barely managing to copy it. Zhao Feng did this so that this item was truly his. He knew that he wouldn't be able to fully comprehend this floating crest lightning seal in a short amount of time, and who knew what the clan would do after the trial? They might even take it for themselves. According to the rules, the clan would take a few treasures and award contribution points in return. After putting the floating crest lightning seal away, Zhao Feng headed in another direction. He had the entire map of the Sky Boundary Island in his mind, and the places where there might be treasures had been tagged. The next destination was slightly far away, but that place had been analyzed by Zhao Feng, meaning that this place might be special or big. The result. His first target. It was an absolutely forbidden area which had caused the temperature of the entire Sky Boundary Island to drop. The treasures inside weren't something that he could have. His second target. Zhao Feng still couldn't figure out the floating crest lightning seal. As for the third target, Zhao Feng estimated that it would be similar with Bei Mua's ancient forgotten garden. On the journey through a quiet place, Zhao Feng felt a familiar true force nearby. Brother Lin. Zhao Feng saw that Lin Fan was 4 to 5 miles away with his left eye. The true force emitting from Lin Fan was strong, like he had just broken into the third sky of the Ascended Realm not long ago. Zhao Feng made sure that his eye patch was on and met up with Lin Fan. Brother Zhao, I didn't think that we'd be able to meet. Lin Fan was overjoyed. Zhao Feng pointed out a path for him. There's a canyon enveloped in an illusion array 50 miles away in the northwestern direction. You can go try your luck there. The canyon he pointed at was the one that he had just been to. Zhao Feng wanted to know if Lin Fan faced the same illusion as him. Of course, there's no guarantee of success. From the canyon, there's a hidden shrine tens of miles away in the southern direction. You can also go try it. Zhao Feng have Lin Fan another place with treasure. Lin Fan had broken through not long ago, and he was extremely surprised. Brother Zhao, you seem to know this place very well. Obviously, I spent several days scouting the situation on the Sky Boundary Island. I saw almost everything within a 100 to 200 mile radius before I started. Zhao Feng gave the white eye as he said with half-truth and half-lies. Lin Fan couldn't help but admire Zhao Feng even more as he heard this. The others wouldn't give up any treasures if they saw it. But Zhao Feng hadn't even went to anything in the first 5 days. The latter had first scouted out the area first to find out the situation instead. There was a saying, knowing oneself and the enemy means victory. From the first action Zhao Feng made, it could be seen that his goal was further than all the other participants. After saying goodbye to Lin Fan, Zhao Feng continued towards his third destination. 6 days have already passed in the Floating Crest trial, with only 3 to 4 days left. Zhao Feng quickened his footsteps. The third destination was slightly far away, but luckily the beasts that were supposed to be around had disappeared, which allowed Zhao Feng to travel faster. Half a day later, Zhao Feng arrived at a grass field. Before, there was swarms of powerful birds flying in the sky. Each group was much more terrifying than the black blood bats in the second stage. But because of the sudden temperature drop which froze the entire island, the number of these birds had dropped dramatically. Zhao Feng increased his speed and he passed through a lovely garden. There was originally a large number of poisonous wasps here, with the weakest at the half-step ascended realm and the majority at the first and second sky. There's tens of thousands of them, and if one was unlucky to be surrounded by them, Zhao Feng sighed. The horde of poisonous wasps had now hid due to the cold. The temperature right now greatly affected those at the first sky of the ascended realm, and only those at the third sky or higher could lower the cold's effect. I'm finally here. Zhao Feng let out a long breath as he glanced at a castle in front of him. The castle gave off an ancient aura, and every brick which made up the castle had the marks of time. In terms of size, this castle was the same as Bei Mua's ancient Forgotten Garden. But because everything was now covered in ice, the danger dropped. After walking inside the castle, Zhao Feng became careful since the castle itself was dangerous. For example, the moat outside gave off a disturbing aura, and Zhao Feng took out a broken mortal weapon and threw it inside the gray-black liquid. A sizzling noise sounded as the broken weapon soon dissolved. Even though the weapon had lost its array and was weaker, normal cultivators at the Ascended Realm couldn't even break it. The entire castle was dead silent, and it gave off a dark feeling. Zhao Feng scouted around outside, and his expression changed. There's traces of someone being here. His heart skipped a beat. There was 2 possibilities. There was a terrifying unknown existence. Another disciple. Zhao Feng thought that the second possibility was higher. Ding! Boom! Bang! At this moment, the sound of battling appeared from the castle's depth. Zhao Feng's left eye concentrated on a wealthy-looking building, and he was slightly caught off guard by what he saw. So unlucky. I accidentally set off these guys just as I entered the center. Quan Chen's ruffled figure sped out from the wealthy building, and behind him came 2 black armored people who had no signs of life. Zhao Feng's left eye could see through material, and he saw that the black armored people were actually machines with an energy substance stored in their cores. From the current situation, the 2 black armored people seemed to have strength near the 5th sky of the Ascended Realm, or else they wouldn't be able to chase Quan Chen away. Brother Zhao, come and help quickly. Quan Chen's eyes light up as he spotted Zhao Feng, who was nearby. The latter's eyebrows rose and instinctively went to pull out an arrow from his quiver, but he suddenly stopped mid-motion. These blue arrows have an ice-sealing effect, but they are one-use items. It wasn't worth it to waste an arrow for Quan Chen. Brother Quan, my arrows probably can't pierce through these black armored people. Zhao Feng's figure flashed, and he leapt on top of the castle gates. Quan Chen swore in his heart. Zhao Feng didn't help him, but this was expected. Luckily, The two black armored people only chased him for 100 yards before returning back to the building. It was as if guarding the building was their duty, and they wouldn't care even if the entire castle was destroyed. Brother Zhao, you've come at the perfect time. This castle's extremely wicked. I finally found the core, but it's extremely troublesome. Why don't you team up with me and we'll split the treasures 50-50 each? Quan Chen smiled, but a flash of coldness appeared in his eyes. Okay. Zhao Feng nodded his head. He was enemies with Quan Chen ever since he entered the clan, and before, he was only an ant to the ladder. But now, Zhao Feng had reached a point to where he wasn't even afraid of the opponent anymore. Quan Chen wanted to use Zhao Feng, and if he had the chance, kill him. This was the same plan as Zhao Feng's. He had entered the castle later, and with Quan Chen's help, he could enter the core area. If he had the chance, he would send Quan Chen on his way as well. The two both their plans as they walked towards the central building. Brother Quan, you've been here at least a day or two, right? You must have gained a lot of things. Zhao Feng laughed as he glanced at Quan Chen's full bag. He could see the items with his left eye, and he knew the price of these items. Although they were good, they were nothing compared with the interspatial bracelet and floating crest lightning seal he had got. No. I've only just entered the central area. In another 3 days' time, everyone will be pursued by the monsters, and we won't have any more chances. Quan Chen led the way, and the two soon entered the building. The former had been here for 2 to 3 days, and he had cleared the outer area. The most expensive place here is a treasury containing many items. However, there's many guards there whose strength ranges from the 4th to 6th sky. Quan Chen explained. Zhao Feng's figure floated on top of a high building, and he surveyed the landscape. Immediately, the structures as well as where the guards were placed had been seen by Zhao Feng. Quan Chen had only told him part of the dangers, and he didn't tell him some hidden dangers. Zhao Feng laughed coldly in his heart as he followed Quan Chen and entered a great hall. Inside the hall, there were a few black and silver armored guards. Black armored guards were usually at the 4th and 5th sky, whereas the silver guards had reached the 6th sky or higher. Even someone as strong as Yang Gan would find it difficult to break through this place. No wonder Quan Chen wanted to team up with him, even though the two were enemies. Brother Zhao, there's the treasury. Quan Chen pointed at an old room which gave off the aura of spiritual items. Zhao Feng inspected this treasury room. From the moment he had entered, his left eye had scanned the entire landscape, including where some guards were placed. There was one thing that could be confirmed. This place was indeed the most central part and was the most protected. Quan Chen had spent 2 to 3 days worth of time to reach here, and at least 40 guards were cleared in order to reach here. Zhao Feng knew that there were several hundred guards within the castle, and that it wasn't easy for Quan Chen to reach here. The latter must have paid a hefty price, even though he was at the peak 4th sky of the ascended realm in strength. With Quan Chen's mindset, would he let someone take the rewards? Therefore, Quan Chen's proposal to split the treasures 50-50 was definitely not realistic. Zhao Feng understood that, by using Quan Chen, he had arrived at the central area with less difficulty. The treasury at his front was the same size as a lounge, if not slightly bigger, and the aura of treasure inside could make any cultivator's heart pound. An inkling of aura from these is more potent than a normal spiritual weapon. Zhao Feng's senses were even sharper than Quan Chen's. After all, he had handled a spiritual weapon before. Spiritual weapons were extremely precious, and most clans only had 1 or 2 that were treated like an heirloom. Furthermore, this was only the aura from the treasury. It probably wasn't even 1/100th of the true aura within. Brother Zhao, why don't we split up? One of us distracts most of the guards while the other goes inside the treasury and steals all the treasure. Quan Chen squeezed out a smile. Steal? Brother Quan, don't make it sound so bad. There's no owner here. Who knows how many years it has been since his death. We're taking it in full light. Zhao Feng snickered. Yes, we're taking it. Quan Chen laughed stiffly and suppressed the anger in his heart. Since when did this ant dare to talk to him this way? The two then discussed who would lure away the guards and who would snag the treasure. Zhao Feng first scanned the entire treasury and caught traces of arrays inside. His left eye could barely see through the walls and see the contour lines inside. Brother Zhao, your movement skills are quite good, so there's not much of a problem for you to distract the guards. Of course, if you don't want to, I can. Quan Chun said generously, as if he didn't mind which choice Zhao Feng made. Most would probably choose the latter since they would only feel safe if they were the one to take the treasure. Okay, I'll distract the guards. Zhao Feng replied. Sure. Quan Chun was somewhat surprised but still laughed coldly in his heart. No matter what you choose, you're still a chess piece that's being sent to its death. Firstly, Zhao Feng had just arrived at the castle and didn't know some of the hidden dangers. If he chose to distract the guards, he would attract more and more danger. Secondly, if Zhao Feng chose to enter the treasury, all Quan Chun needed to do was distract the guards and then disappear without a trace, which meant that droves of guards would return to the treasury. Therefore, Quan Chun didn't care which choice Zhao Feng made, as both choices spelled death for him. There were around 20 to 30 guards stationed near the treasury whose strength ranged from the 4th to 6th sky, so distracting these guards was a dangerous job. According to the plan, Zhao Feng needed to distract at least half. Pong! Zhao Feng punched out. The ensuing air wave hit the walls of the treasury and shook the entire room. The treasury had an array protecting it, and the instant it was hit, a red glow appeared which caught the attention of some nearby guards. Sang! So, Zhao Feng's figure blurred as he attracted 10 to 20 guards towards the outer area. Of these guards, around 10 or so were at the 4th sky, 4 at the 5th sky, and only 1 silver guard at the 6th sky. Great job, Brother Zhao. Quan Chun laughed smugly as joy and coldness flashed in his eyes. After being chased by so many guards, maybe only Yang Gan was able to retreat without being harmed. Even Bei Moi and himself would find it extremely dangerous. Furthermore, Zhao Feng had just entered the castle and didn't know any of the other dangers. Zhao Feng's figure turned into an after-image as he circulated his heavenly wind true force to its utmost, boasting speed superior to most cultivators at the 4th sky of the ascended realm. This was because he had reached a high level in the heavenly wind god technique, and the purity of his true force was even better than normal cultivators at the 4th sky. Furthermore, Zhao Feng had merged his illusion fish picture into the skill, which made his speed even faster than Quan Chen's. Apart from that, these guards were decked out in heavy armor that enhanced their defenses, with the impediment of their agility and range of motion being the only liability. Using his agility, even the guards at the 5th and 6th sky weren't able to catch up to him in a short amount of time. His left eye could see through walls and predict some of the hidden dangers. As for the landscape, he was even more familiar with it than Quan Chen. Soon, Zhao Feng had attracted these guards to the entrance of the building. At this time, the guards who could still catch up were the guards at the 5th sky as well as the 1 silver guard. Only the silver guard's speed was on parity with Zhao Feng's, but its agility was far worse. Zhao Feng's left eye could peer into the guard's body and see the flow of energy inside, which allowed him to predict the other's attacks beforehand. Zhao Feng managed to dodge the silver guard's attacks many times. Were he to be hit, he would be seriously injured, if not dead even, despite his silver wall technique having been trained to its highest level. But Zhao Feng, who had the mysterious left eye, controlled the entire situation. After running out of the building, the landscape became flat, which made it hard for him to use it to his advantage. The distance between Zhao Feng and the silver guard gradually shortened. Once the guard caught up and managed to stall him, the other 4 black armored guards at the 5th sky would arrive, which almost guaranteed his death. A layer of azure blood appeared within Zhao Feng's body, which gave off a strong aura of the soul. Instantly, his mental energy, concentration, and senses rose. The power of bloodline was something that Zhao Feng himself didn't understand, but the difference was obvious. The same punch with the power of bloodline could hit 3,000 to 3,500 kilograms, whereas it was only 1,500 to 2,000 kilograms without it. At this moment in time, Zhao Feng's speed instantly increased. Zhao Feng's speed almost doubled and even surpassed the silver guard who was at the 6th sky of the ascended realm. The latter might have high cultivation, but his speed was just a bit faster than those at the 5th sky. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Feng had run out tens of yards. He then turned around and took out his Luoho bow and notched a blue arrow onto it. Being in midair, he could see Quan Chen's situation with his left eye. After the latter entered the treasury and touched the array, The nearby 10 guards or so chased after him. But because the path to the treasury was small, the number of guards that could go past at once was limited. Quan Chun was extremely cunning. He blocked off one side of the entrance and tried to take some treasures while fighting them off at the same time. The different types of treasures gave off pure and alluring auras that made their hearts thump. Pong! Quan Chun tried to take an item, but he was blocked by a layer of white light and was almost injured. Damn it! All the treasures have arrays around them. Quan Chen's expression was grim. He had tried many times and knew that these arrays couldn't be broken through in a short amount of time. It was lucky that his cultivation had increased significantly ever since he had entered the trial. He had a middle-grade mortal weapon, which meant he could easily slay black armored guards at the fourth sky. That retard Zhao Feng must have died after attracting the attention of so many guards. Quan Chen felt a little better after thinking about Zhao Feng. At the same time, outside of the building. Bong! So, a blue item flew through the air and caused the temperature nearby to drop. The ice lotus symbol on the Luo Ho bow suddenly lit up when it was pulled back, and under the freezing temperature, it turned into a transparent arrow of ice. Ka! The arrow hit the silver guard head-on and shattered on impact. With Zhao Feng's current strength, he couldn't break through the defenses of the silver guard, especially when the forte of these guards was defense. The silver guard leapt towards Zhao Feng, unharmed. However, just as it moved, its actions slowed down a bit and a layer of ice formed over its body. A terrifying coldness spread 4 to 5 yards out from the silver guard. Dang! 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 The black armored guards in the back froze in their steps when they entered the cold's area of effect. In just a breath's time, for black armored guards at the fifth sky of the ascended realm turned into ice sculptures. Only the silver guard was barely able to fight back against the cold. At this point in time, the silver guard as well as the 4 black armored guards were controlled by Zhao Feng's one arrow. The effect was far greater than Zhao Feng had expected. The latter opened his left eye and realized that a layer of ice was extending through the parts of the guard, soon reaching the core where the energy was stored. These guards didn't have life but had many parts inside. Once they were frozen, it would affect the amount of energy transferred. From the looks of it, the 4 black guards had been sealed in ice and wouldn't be able to escape in a short amount of time. It was the silver guard that was still resisting, but even if it could break through the ice seal, its speed would be restricted. Go! Zhao Feng didn't bother with these guards anymore and returned back to the building. In the central area, Quan Chun was still facing off the guards. But these guards didn't seem to be smart, or else they could have summoned the remaining hundreds of guards already. Unless one was at the true spirit realm, no one would be able to escape such an outpour of guards. Zhao Feng landed on a rooftop close to the treasury and watched the show below. As Zhao Feng returned, the black guards that hadn't caught up with him earlier returned back to the treasury. A total of 20 to 30 armored guards were about to surround the treasury. That brat Zhao Feng has already been finished off? Quan Chen's expression changed as he slashed forwards heavily, ripping 2 black armored guards into pieces. Run! He sped towards the exit of the building, but before he reached it, a silver cold came in from the opposite direction. Ah! Quan Chen hiccuped as he looked at the silver guard enveloped in a layer of ice. Hee hee. A figure laughed lightly and went inside the treasury while Quan Chen was being pursued by the guards. At present, there were no guards remaining in the vicinity. That figure was indeed Zhao Feng. His plan was perfect. The guards that were pursuing him had returned back to the treasury after losing track of him, forcing Quan Chen to flee with all the guards chasing him. Zhao Feng had found out that all of the items in the treasury were protected by an array, which couldn't be broken in a short amount of time. Therefore, he decided to attract the guards' attention first, and then let Quan Chen face all the fire. Because of his left eye, Zhao Feng had absolute control. In both markets and battlefields, nothing was more important than information, and Zhao Feng had this advantage, which allowed him to win every battle. Zhao Feng was slightly dazed as he walked into the treasury. Then, he became extremely excited. There was a large quantity of items inside. Some were weapons, others collectibles such as art, calligraphy, armor, maps, and other things he couldn't name. But Zhao Feng's left I could make out that the quality of these items was not simple and that most of the weapons in the treasury were at least of the spiritual grade. Would these collectibles that were placed together with spiritual weapons be simple? Could be said that the value of any item here would make anyone go crazy. However, Zhao Feng's eyebrows knitted together as he realized that these items were all protected by separate arrays. The arrays were extremely powerful and had probably had power at the true spiritual realm, if not higher. The only shortcoming was that the supply of energy had decreased significantly due to age. There were a few items with flaws in their protective array. Of course, normal people wouldn't be able to see this. Only people such as Zhao Feng, who had a powerful left eye, or those who had studied arrays would be able to see this. The power of every protection array is incredibly strong and they can mend themselves. If someone at the fourth sky of the ascended realm were to attack one of them for 2 to 3 days straight, it should break at least. Zhao Feng concluded. To confirm his speculation, he sent out a palm attack at one of the items. Pong! A white glow appeared and pushed Zhao Feng back, but the latter had been expecting this and came out of it unscathed. The light only dimmed a little bit due to the attack from someone at the fourth sky, but after a few breaths, the dim spot became bright again. Indeed, it'll need 3 days' time, considering there is an item with flaws in the array. If it was one without flaws, it'll need 10 days to break. If only I had someone like Yanggan to team up with me and attack it. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. If there was someone else, the time needed would decrease dramatically. Unfortunately, he wasn't even sure if Quan Chun was dead or not, and the latter couldn't be trusted. As for Yanggan, Lin Fan and company, they were far away, facing their own problems at their respective places. There was no other way. Zhao Feng only had one choice, and that was to fight alone. It was a good thing this way, though. The items all belonged to him and him alone. Next, Zhao Feng scanned around to find his target. There were just too many items in the treasury, including weapons, armor, etc., etc. The entire treasury had around a couple of hundred drawers containing items inside. Some of them were empty, and the items that were in the empty drawers had been taken by previous participants Zhao Feng guessed. Those that could get into the treasury and take such items weren't simple figures. Of the couple hundred drawers, only 1/10 had flaws in their arrays, and Zhao Feng's eyes scanned all of them before landing on a target. It was a half-broken transparent cloak that seemed like a mirror. After locking onto it, Zhao Feng's left eye twitched slightly and his bloodline power had a familiar feeling. This cloak gave off an ancient aura, which didn't even reach the spiritual grade or even the high-grade mortal weapon. It seemed like it was extremely normal. Then why would it be placed with such rare items? Zhao Feng was certain that this cloak wasn't simple or had a high collectible value. Even if I did get a spiritual weapon, it would be of no use to me. I'd probably have to hand it over to the clan after the trial. So why don't I choose this? Zhao Feng made his decision. Spiritual weapons were too far away from him, and there was a legend saying that there were inheritance divine artifacts, which could ignore the user's cultivation and become the most powerful weapon for any certain cultivation. However, these inheritance divine artifacts were far too rare, and every one of them were guarded like heirlooms. Pong! 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 Zhao Feng smashed at the drawer with palm after palm, and the skill he was using was lightning wind palm. It was best to first perfect this skill, and with every palm he thrust out, Zhao Feng would improve it in his mind. The attack rate was constant. A breath to 2 breaths time rest between each palm, allowing him to last longer. After a while, Zhao Feng heard the sound of footsteps, which should belong to the retreating guards. These guards weren't idiots. If they found that something was wrong, they would definitely come over and inspect. If only I could set up a soundproof array here. Zhao Feng stopped and he went into deep thought. Soundproof arrays weren't very hard to set up, but the problem Zhao Feng had was that he lacked the materials. This was the biggest restriction to array masters. If there weren't the materials, nothing could be made. Of course, if one did have the materials beforehand, they could slaughter a group of people stronger than themselves. Zhao Feng flipped through his interspatial ring, which contained everything he had. Unfortunately, I'm missing 2 materials. Zhao Feng shook his head and he tried to think of other ways. But there was nothing he could do with 2 materials missing. Right at this moment, Zhao Feng heard a slight noise and he saw a figure landed on the rooftop opposite the treasury. Zhao Feng, so you didn't die? Quan Chen's voice contained surprise and anger. Zhao Feng's action stiffened. It looked like he had underestimated Quan Chen. Inspecting the latter, he found that Quan Chen had multiple wounds and bandages. His hair was ruffled and his clothes were ripped as if he had been raped. The hatred in his eyes made it seem even more so. Shua! Quan Chen's figure charged towards the treasury. His goal wasn't the items inside, but Zhao Feng. First kill Zhao Feng, then get the treasures. Zhao Feng laughed coldly and he thrust out his palm heavily as he stood at the entrance. Partial moon flying knife. Quan Chen waved his sword and 4 to 5 beams of sharp, dangerous light sped towards Zhao Feng with different angles. Boom! Zhao Feng's fierce palm caused thunder to boom, but it was still pushed back by the cold flash of sword light. Quan Chen had a mortal weapon in hand, which increased his damage. He also had higher cultivation and his chilling moon technique had progressed to the 4th level. I'll first take your bastard life. Quan Chen decided to get rid of Zhao Feng because this would probably be his last chance. Wind lightning destruction. Zhao Feng circulated his true force and skill to the max and the humming of thunder was even louder than before. But Quan Chen had a middle-grade mortal weapon after all and he was able to push through. Under this desperate situation, Zhao Feng used a small part of his bloodline power secretly, but the power of his attacks increased significantly. Pong! The sound of thunder became louder and louder. Zhao Feng finally felt his lightning wind palm reach its pinnacle and become smoother and smoother, as if it had broken through a certain point. At the same time, a bit of the floating crest lightning seal was comprehended. Wind lightning raging dragon. Zhao Feng howled and a snake dragon that had sizzles of lightning crackling around it appeared. What? The power of lightning? Quan Chen's expression changed dramatically and the instant that the two clashed together, his body became numb. The 4th level of the lightning wind palm had a certain numbing effect. But after Zhao Feng had merged a bit of the floating crest lightning seal into it, the original skill had improved. Zhao Feng forced Quan Chen out with continuous palms. At the same time, the nearby black armored guards came over. Quan Chen could only evade and he said with hatred, I don't believe that you can stay in there forever. Where are you going? Zhao Feng took out his Luoho bow and notched a blue arrow in it before shooting it at the direction of the entrance. Shua! A blue arrow pierced through the air, and it sped towards Quan Chen with terrifying coldness. The latter knew how terrifying Zhao Feng's archery skills were, and he instantly put up a layer of true force and dropped himself onto the ground. Sha! The blue arrow scraped across his shoulder and pierced a guard nearby. There wasn't any blood flowing from Quan Chen's shoulder, but a chilling coldness spread from there and formed a layer of ice over him. Crack! The ice arrow shattered and issified everything in a few yards radius. In just 1 to 2 breaths' time, Quan Chen and the nearby 4 to 5 guards had all been sealed at the entrance. Glancing at the ice sculptures, Zhao Feng could see that Quan Chen was circulating his true force heavily, wanting to break out. The former snickered coldly and pulled the Luoho bow back again. Chio! Another blue arrow was shot into the entrance, and it froze the other guards that came running across. In just a few breaths' time, 10 ice statues blocked the entrance like a hill. Ha ha ha! Great! 1 arrow, 2 birds. Zhao Feng couldn't restrain his laugh. The ice hill became a barrier, which forced the other guards away. Once they came close, they would be sealed in ice as well. The cold from 2 ice arrows was devastating. Zhao Feng's left eye saw through the ice and saw that the true force, blood and life force of Quan Chen was starting to freeze.